councillors. I'd like to welcome you today and open the meeting at 9:12 a.m. and thank you for your attendance. I'd like to deal with apologies. I'll move an apology for Councillor Edwards. Do we have a leave of...
Mr Mayor, so Kelly changing it.
You already have.
Didn't we do that last meeting until a certain date?
I think it was.
Yeah.
21st of
It was
May.
Oh, there it is on the bottom. It wasn't in there.
Yep, or 22nd.
Just looking at it.
Move a leave of absence for Councillor Edwards for this meeting. Seconded by Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? And
Whatever was in the email.
do we have any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll deal with the confirmation of the minutes on the 11th of May 2022. Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 11th of May 2022 be confirmed.
We have a seconder, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Item 8.1, proposed sale of Newbon Street, Roma. Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that one council subdivide its vacant land bordered by Newbon Street, Tiffin Street, Edward Street South and Corfe Road, as per option 1, into 2 blocks with council categorising and retaining approximately 7.7 hectares on the corners of Newbon and Tiffin Street as cemetery reserve. 2, council fence the 7.7 hectares and offer it for lease by open tender for the purpose of grazing horses - cattle until required with intended purpose. 3, council offer the approximate remaining 19 hectares for sale by open tender. 4, the subdivision be funded from council's infrastructure reserves and be reimbursed from the proceeds of the sale of the approximate 19 hectares. And 5, council allocate the project in the 2022-23 financial year budget.
Do we have a seconder?
Got a question.
Please go ahead.
I just wonder, this came before council last week and obviously last meeting and Councillor McMullen was away, but I moved it lay on the table until this meeting on the basis that the financial costings be included for consideration. We haven't got the financial costings.
Through the chair, it's a notice of motion, so there is no direction to council staff to provide those costings.
But then there was a procedural motion supported by the full council.
A deferral.
No, it wasn't a deferral. The mayor looked to defer it and he withdrew that, and then I moved a procedural motion that this matter lay on the table on page 5 of 96.
I think it was the other way around, councillor.
It wasn't, sorry, Madam CEO. I moved a procedural motion that it lays on the table for the financial costings to be provided.
That's the
And
mayor.
through the chair, it is a notice of motion.
We can't ask for financial costings until the motion is approved.
But a follow-up question then, how can we allocate the project in the 2022-23 financial year budget without knowing what the costings are?
That's a matter for council. You have a notice of motion before you. It's a matter for council. For the councillor, if you have questions of the councillor, to ask the questions to the councillor.
Well, I will.
Please go ahead.
Councillor McMullen, you've been working with the manager on this.
Yes.
So therefore, I must assume that there would be costings associated with what you propose. I'm not against it.
No.
I want the costings.
We're not supposed to talk. I'm not supposed to even be talking about this at this point. I'm supposed to have a seconder before I can speak to the motion.
I'm asking questions. So.
But however, I can't ask. I didn't ask the manager that. I don't have the authority to ask her that. The only information I got was some maps.
Oh right.
Just the mapping and the plan, like so I think you would have got the maps last week. Like,
We did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So can a follow-up question, Councillor McMullen, would you frame the resolution then that it comes back with the costings for consideration? Because we can't allocate something, the 2022 financial budget with, well, I can't. I don't know how we can put something in a budget that we don't know what we're allocating.
I disagree, but anyway. That'll come back once it's, if it gets up as a motion, then that will be done through the staff. It's not a,
But you're putting this, if this is supported today, as it stands, 0.5, council allocate the project in the 22-23 financial year budget. We don't know what the costings are to support whether it goes in the budget or not.
Could it just have full consideration, like if that, for that last
We do
point?
that quite often, yeah.
Council allocate the project and.
Council consider the project.
Well, that means it comes back there with everything you want, just with the money, with the financial attached to it.
okay, well, I'm happy to change it to council consider then.
Council consider allocating the project. Is that what you're changing it to?
Yeah, allocating.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, do we have a seconder for the motion?
Oh, wait.
Do we have another question?
Is it, can I ask now or do you want?
Depends what the question is. You can ask questions of the staff.
I'm allowed to ask a question, okay. So,
Through the chair, you really should second your motion.
Well,
It
that's
needs to
what
be on the table before you discuss it, and really the questions are part of that discussion.
Right, is anyone willing to second the motion? Councillor Burkett. Okay, please ask your question.
just within the order, so I'm not against it either, but just within the order, so I can fully understand, number 3 and 4. So we're going to offer the 19 hectares both sale by open tender, and then the subdivision be funded by council. So I'm assuming that the subdivision, because if the 19 hectares go to open tender, they're going to buy that and they're going to do whatever they want with that. Is the subdivision, the costing for the subdivision, which would be handy to have that costing, is the costing for the subdivision about subdividing the 7.7 hectares off, or the 19 hectares off, whichever way? Is that like what is the costing to do this as in where would the cost lay to do it? Is it just subdividing those two things?
Well, that's correct, yeah.
So there's no subdivision within the 19 hectares, is there?
Not
No.
at this stage.
No, into 2 blocks. It's written in with council categorising the retaining 7.7. It's written in the thing.
Yes, I can see that. I'm just making sure I'm understanding, because with the order of it, I'm just making
Well, if I
sure.
was allowed to speak to the motion, Mr Mayor, I'd probably be allowed to answer some of these questions, but people seem to want to go on asking questions about the resolution, which is against the standing orders. I can't answer your questions until we have a seconder.
We
did get a seconder.
Yeah.
I asked that.
Yeah, sorry.
Mayor, where in the standing orders does it say you can't ask a question about the resolution? Where in the standing
I
orders
can't
does it
speak
say-
to the resolution till we have a seconder.
You can answer questions if asked. It's
Through the
up to
chair,
you
but
whether you
matter.
decide to answer them or not.
Yeah, and certainly through the chair. I mean, the process in relation to your standing orders is that the matter's got to be before council, and essentially, unless it's seconded, it's not really before council. I know your practice is to jump in ahead of
Has
time.
now though.
Yep.
It has been
Now it
seconded.
is, yeah.
And then your normal practice is that the councillor would speak to the motion, to their motion, because it is their motion, as opposed to a council executive officer report. So that's really the process. Your practice is that you jump in with questions, but really sequentially, it is about having a live discussion of a matter, and that matter should be seconded. And then the councillor should speak, have the opportunity to speak to that motion, and then questions. And by all means, it's up to the councillor to consider whether they answer those questions. But again, your practice is that if a question's asked, you invariably respond to that. And certainly the onus is on the councillor to respond.
But Mayor, that hasn't been common practice. We've and it's an interpretation of the standing orders. So we've allowed questions.
Joski's law.
Sorry.
It's Joski's law. Through the chair, it's the basis on which council standing orders are actually derived. is that a motion has got to be seconded.
Yeah, sorry, it has been seconded, and that often you do then allow questions before the mover speaks. So that has been common practice.
Yes.
Yeah, and whether that's right or not, it's obviously we've got to follow the standing orders. But one of the big things was people may not want to second it, but I understand you bring it onto the table. As the CEO said, that makes sense. So do we have any more questions, or we'll go to the debate? Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
I'll speak for the motion first, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, but I think we actually ask if anyone wants to speak against, and then you go to speak for the motion.
Or anyone
Right.
against.
Anyone against?
Oh, against it.
Yeah, and I'm just saying I'm against. Then
Just
Councillor
said, does anyone want to speak against the motion?
yeah,
Sorry, so through the chair, the mover of the motion should have the opportunity to speak to the motion first. There can be other, obviously you work through a process there of for and against, etc. And certainly questions can be asked during that time.
Okay, so Councillor McMullen, would you like to speak for the motion?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, this block, as some of all councillors probably know by now, that was purchased in the last term for the future expansion of the cemetery. So I looked at this and I got the maps through S170A through the manager. I've chosen option 1 because option 1 on the map, Lewis Street South runs past the cemetery, the current cemetery, and that would leave room for it to be extended into that block and would give the cemetery on the left-hand side and then residential or whatever. It's actually rural residential, but on the right-hand side. The second, option 2, was to run it east-west, but not only does that block the road, if you look on the maps, the other end has got a sewage main in it, so there'd be not much point putting a cemetery on top of a sewage main when it can be advantageous for future developers to have that. So what else? Yeah, and that was my thought, just sell the 7.7, sell the remaining, it's a fraction under 19 hectares off, and keep the 7.7 hectares because we have had the current cemetery since 1875, I think it is, and 1999 for the lawn cemetery. So if we lease that out on a 10-year basis or something, I don't think it'll be needed to be used for quite some time. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion?
I don't, I just have a question.
You have a question, please go
I'm allowed
ahead.
to ask a question. Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor McMullen, what is the advantage of opening this up compared to opening up the blocks that we, up the top of town that council's just decided to buy?
I wasn't quite sure what you mean.
So I guess if we're looking at opening up areas, that's what we're trying to do, isn't it?
No, I'm just putting it up for sale. I'm not opening it up. I'm suggesting we keep the 7.7 hectares and just sell the rest off.
And sell the rest off. But is that on the basis of trying to deal with the housing?
Well, I mean, there's flood area in it, as we can see. So a lot of it can't be used for housing. It's rural residential, so you could have someone just want to buy the lot and put a house in one corner. I mean...
So do you think it's just extra land that council doesn't need?
Well, I think that's right. I think we'd be better off selling that. We've got 2 other blocks, one other big block that we haven't subdivided yet. We can retain, I believe we'll get a big proportion of our money back by selling it off to what was invested in there, and that money can be used to do something with those other blocks. I mean, we've got two, this block and another big block, and we're looking at other land, so do we keep buying land and sitting on it?
I just got a question to you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Ladbrook.
To anyone that know Councillor O'Neill or Jeff, I just wondered what we paid for originally.
Well, we're in an open thing. I won't. I
And
know what
then,
we paid for, but I'm not going to say it in open.
Or roughly.
Can't remember.
I
and
can,
then,
but I'm not going to say it in open.
Are you not allowed to say?
Well, I don't know.
I went
Would it have
past
public-
there
would it have been
and
made
I
public?
just wouldn't be
We spent
comfortable.
public money, so
So we paid about 360,000.
So I wouldn't be comfortable voting on it. I'd like to go and see it.
You
What
would have
we're
been
doing.
over there pinching grapes.
Yeah, I know, but that's a long time ago.
Councillor Burkett?
You know what I mean?
Just
Like,
a-
I'd
just
just like to know where, you know what I mean?
Just a question, like I'm definitely for the idea. I was just wondering if there's a little bit of flexibility or if Councillor McMullen has an answer. Just with the 19 hectares, is it, I'm pretty sure there's that includes a corner block road
Yeah,
either
that's
side.
what-
Would,
And your maps, I know we haven't got them today, but.
yeah,
so-
no, would it be to do a third breakdown and just have, say, 2 house blocks or 3 houses? Would that make it too messy or?
Well, I did consider subdividing, and then when I raised it briefly at a briefing a few weeks ago, someone said, well, we're doing enough subdivision now, do we need any more? So I went and changed my ideas to just keeping what council wanted in the original. It's bought it for the original thing was to extend the cemetery, then go on there.
Yeah, okay.
Because the water flows through there, it'd be.
Councillor O'Neill?
Just got a question for
Yeah.
the Deputy Mayor. Would you consider laying this on the table until later in the meeting, given that there are a couple of other items on today's agenda that might further inform possibilities of what you're proposing? And I can't say what it is, but
No.
I mean, we've been discussing things for some time in relation to houses. I just wonder if
I wouldn't be in favour of doing that if there was a proposal to shift a house onto it, because I don't believe that's the right place to put a house for council. If that's, we've got better places to shift houses to, in my opinion. Cheaper options too. Shifting a house over there would be very expensive. You've got to get railway permission, you've got to get TMR permission.
right.
If that's, I think I know what you're talking about, I had that in the back of my mind, but
Well, I know. I think you proposed in the first instance, so that's why I was wondering why
what's that?
you floated the idea.
Anyway, we've got to get on with the debate.
Yeah.
If you don't have a question,
Well, I
Count-
I've answered the.
Okay.
I've put my
Councillor
question.
Hancock?
Through you, Mr Mayor, can someone please tell, it's just, we don't have a history, like we're new to the table, like, can someone please tell me, why did council decide to purchase that
For
much
the-
land there?
it's in the report.
In the beginning,
For the,
yeah, for the extension, but,
because it's one block. They had to buy the lot. We couldn't buy a piece of it. It's one block, so.
so sorry, I don't
No,
know.
so
all the-
that's why-
and there's no, it's one
That's why
page
we've,
report,
that's
like-
why we've got to subdivide it, because it's one block.
Right,
And
Cut our if it gets up, we cut that corner off and then put the rest. That was my proposal.
and was that ever discussed when you originally purchased
We just
it?
purchased it and it got leased out. There was a few people running horses, then that would never come back to the table again that I'm aware of.
It hasn't.
Still leased out?
Well, not at the moment, no, because the people, one lady had it, and last time we went out for horses, it went out for so long and it's not been renewed.
So I'll speak against the motion. Just a bit of history about this. As far as I know, and I'm happy to be corrected, that Deputy Mayor was against buying this land in the last council that decided. I'm happy to correct myself if that's not correct. And I supported buying this land, not only for extra land for the cemetery, but for long-term land that we would have available for livability issues in the Maranoa. And if we're serious about livability issues, one of the trump cards that we've got about moving to the bush is to be able to have a horse or a pony. And this is, a lot of it is flood land, as in where we get enormous amount of water through there. We obviously, I believe, a major concern of the majority of council was to secure future for the cemetery. I don't believe it's good to shift a cemetery into have 2 cemeteries in town, so I think securing that land, but instead of why I'm not in favour of selling that the other half of the block, or approximately half, is that I believe that we should be doing it into pony paddocks, and that would be a fantastic thing for Roma to be able to say as part of attraction to the region, that you can actually not only just purchase a residential house in town, but you can have a pony. And, you know, otherwise people have to spend probably $1 million to get a house with to run a pony. So I believe also another reason why I wouldn't support this, I don't think we have an excess of land. I do also believe that council should have land for the next 100 years to make it available. Another reason that I would not be supporting this is because we have some drainage issues in that area that have not been dealt with, and owning the council land in that area is far more cost effective than having to deal with private individuals and paying compensation if we need to do other issues with flood mitigation in the future. So, and when I say flood mitigation, I'm talking about overland flow of stormwater mitigation. So to me, to have all that, the other thing, councillors, is it is extremely difficult to get new projects into the budget. The budget is always tight. So this is a situation we already have the land. So, you know, I certainly would not be supporting giving away for future councils all of those opportunities when we already own it, and it is an asset for the future. Because if a council doesn't have any future, even if it's to do with stormwater and so forth, this block, I believe, has got benefits to the strategic long-term priorities of council, and it should not be considered to be sold. Okay, does someone wish to speak for the motion?
Got a question.
Please go ahead.
Chair, to the CEO. Edwina, how quickly could our GIS staff generate a map that of that area that illustrates the flooding?
We were given it.
Should be able to do it here.
When?
Yeah, I've seen
Didn't
them
we,
somewhere.
wasn't a couple in the agenda? It's not in this
The
one.
first week.
First agenda.
Last week's agenda.
There was two different,
There were maps
Yeah.
there.
I can certainly give you the map because I would still have them here from when I was.
Through the chair,
I just got it on the
in answer
computer.
to that, probably pretty quickly.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Can I move
Oh,
a
yeah.
procedural motion that this lays on the table to later in the meeting so we can get those maps?
Well, all those in favour?
Can I just add to that too?
Yeah.
Also, there's that. I've got all crazy map stuff on there now, but there's a house there's a house just down in that block. I just need to know what it is. Like,
That's the one that we're going to demolish that. It's in the budget somewhere to demolish
yeah.
it.
So that's
That should be in the cemetery block too.
yeah.
It's in which budget's it in to demolish?
Oh,
Last
the
year's
last budget, I think it's in this one again too. I think
2021-22.
50,000 in there to demolish it. I think we might have, I know whether we,
So councillor Burker, did you have anything else you
Oh
wanted?
no, that's answered that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Righto, so we did the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay.
Mayor, can I just highlight before we get too far? I know we just had a conversation around the standing orders and what was appropriate and isn't appropriate. Point 16.3 under speaking to motions amendment, a councillor may request to the chairperson for further information, which tells me is a question, before or after the motion or amendment is seconded.
Righto.
16.3 in our standing orders.
but
Righto.
in the top line, it says the mover can't speak to the motion until you have a seconder.
That's the debate.
Yeah, but yeah.
Answering questions is not speaking to a motion.
Through the chair, it is asking the chair for information. So yes, you could interpret that as a question. However, the questions that you're invariably proposing are not necessarily about further information in relation to the port. It's probably directly relevant to the discussion. So I take your point, councillor.
Okay, 10.1, Local Government Remuneration Commission schedule commencing 1 July 2022. I'd like to, please go ahead.
Sorry, just before you do that, could I ask a question to the CEO?
Yeah, sure.
Through you. Madam CEO, I'm not really sure, but I think we're allowed to vote on these separately. Are we allowed to vote on these separately?
Through the chair, in relation to the current report you're looking at?
The remuneration of councillors' wages. are we allowed to do them as in the mayor, the deputy mayor, and then the councillors?
Yep, through the chair, certainly you could amend that and break that down if you wish. Yes,
Do we have to move a motion to do that separately?
you would move a procedural motion in relation to that.
Could I move a procedural motion for that?
Please go ahead, councillor Taylor.
I'd just like to move a procedural motion that we vote on the council, local government remuneration commission schedule as 3 individual ones, one for the mayor, one for the deputy mayor, and one for councillors, please.
Okay, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That was carried 5-3, if I can call for a division. Okay, so, well, I'd like to move that, so I'd like to move that the remuneration for the mayor stay at, so maybe we could use page 34.
Yes.
That council note the findings of the Local Government Remuneration Commission review. 2, set the remuneration as follows for mayor, 130,584. Note 3, note this retains the remuneration that has been in place since 1st of July 2019. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Guthrie.
That's right. Kel's picked up on it. Right.
Effective from, you just missed saying effective from 1st July 2022.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
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 That's when it starts.
Say 2022, did
I
I?
didn't say anything.
No, I think.
Just
you
said
might just
effective.
read it
3, note that this retains the remuneration that has been in place since 1st of July 2019.
That wasn't-
3 is not the issue.
It's number 2, the first line of number 2, Mr Mayor. You just missed off saying effective from 1 July 2022, that's all.
Okay, set the remuneration as follows, effective from the 1st of July 2021.
22.
2.
Oh,
That's the
2,
last.
yeah, righto, okay. Okay, is the seconder happy with that?
Yes, I am.
Righto. And I'll speak to the motion. I don't believe that any remuneration should change. I believe that we need to set an example for the general public. I believe the remuneration is generous. There was many councillors that have done work, albeit on maybe not as much work, but that would consider this incredibly generous, and I do believe that having a pay freeze is a responsible thing to do, and it shows good leadership. Does anyone else wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Taylor.
I'd actually like to speak about the whole 3, so I'll just take this opportunity to do it now. I believe that we should accept the increase. The reason I believe we should take the increase is because it increases every year. The fact that we haven't taken it doesn't change the fact that it will go up. The gap is getting wider, cost of living has gone up, and we need to be real about this. One of my reasonings is that some of us around this table need the increase, and those that don't are more fortunate. There are business owners at this table and retired people at this table, but if the wage was just a little bit more, we might have others put their hand up to sit here. It's not enough to be the only income, so we are disadvantaged those that would or might like to be a councillor full-time. Another reason that is, even though some at this table still do run their businesses as a councillor, they can't possibly dedicate as much time to all the things that are asked of us. And it's just not possible, and I'm not asking them to. I just believe that if the wage was a little bit more appealing, others might get the opportunity to have a go and take it up as a full-time job, because it could easily be a full-time job. So I'm asking that we stop and consider those that are coming after us. Otherwise, they will be hammered in their first decision as council if they put their wage up. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? I'll just sum up. I disagree with the comments. I do believe whether you're running a business, the feedback that whether you're running a business, the best councillors are the ones that want to put the effort in and don't just want it because it's a well-paid job. And I believe that the situation is that the feedback that I get from community is that the worst thing in the world could be someone that just takes this as a job, and the only thing they do, because the feedback I get from the community is they lose touch with reality because it's a guaranteed pay. They're not in their business, in their job. They're not. In fact, that's actually why I believe we should consider night meetings. If you're worried about disadvantaging people that have got jobs in the daytime, I agree. But the feedback I get from community is that there is a big benefit of having people that are part of the living, whether they're in business or they've got a job, they are more connected, is the feedback that I've got from the general public, and the ratepayers of the Maranoa appreciate them being there. Okay, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 5-3 if I can call for a division.
People, Mr Mayor. 5-3, sorry. One person missing, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have someone to move on the Deputy Mayor position? Councillor McMahon.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council set the remuneration. Note the findings of the Local Government Remuneration Commission's review. 2, set the remuneration for Deputy Mayor at $81,615 effective from the 1st of July 2022. And 3, note that this retains the remuneration that has been in place since July 2019.
I'll second that motion. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say I voted against this in the previous term, and the motion was lost, but I've been paying mine into a charity since then, so I had to accept it, but I've been passing it on to charity, and if I was forced to take a further pay rise, I would pass that on too.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 5-3 if I can call for a division. Okay, does someone wish to move a motion on councillor remuneration? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move number 1, note the findings of the Local Government Remuneration Commission's review. 2, set the remuneration for councillors at $69,372 effective from the 1st of July 2022. And 3, note that this retains the remuneration that has been in place since the 1st of July 2019.
Okay, do we have a seconder? I'll second that. Any opposition? Councillor Hancock. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. When I stood as a potential candidate for the elections back in 2020, there was a question asked to all of us that was actually then our results were put into the local newspaper at that stage. And I'll be honest and say I had no idea what a councillor actually, what the wage that a councillor would then receive when they were elected. I nominated then from the heart to actually step in and do something, and I've got to say the financial considerations for me personally weren't a driving force for standing. I'd also have to say after doing 2 years, I continue with the passion and the commitment to standing as a councillor, and once again, the remuneration I believe shouldn't be the prime determinant for getting people to stand. I think that people stand for a multitude of reasons. my reason for standing was to actually give back to the community and to be able to do and to serve and to attend and to be able to work with people. So I personally don't believe that we need to be increasing the amount of money we're receiving, particularly in these trying times when there's a lot of people that are struggling with the cost of living, etc. I think we need to be then able to do the job that we've been elected to do without having a pay rise at this particular point.
Okay, does someone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hancock?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this decision for me isn't actually about me. Personally, I don't need a pay rise. I can hear around the table that other people here may not. But true leadership actually thinks about the future and the future of this council and the future of councillors who are going to sit around this table. My concern last year, and it is my concern this year, is that this is a wage that is set by an independent body. It's not set by us. And so we're getting further and further away from what an independent body is saying a councillor's pay should be. My concern is that we need to entice people to come to the table. We need to have a wage that provides them the opportunity that they may be able to, step down from a full-time job and maybe to have a part-time job or a part-time job, or actually do this as a full-time job. We need to entice it. I met a young lady the other day who is a younger person in our community who says, I'm really, really excited and want to learn and want to look at being involved in local government. I was so excited to have that conversation with her, but we need to be able to have a wage that entices our younger generation. I'm scared that we're going to set our future council up where only retired people or people who own a business or who can afford to be able to supplement their wage to be able to feed their family, to be able to be a councillor. The gap's getting bigger and bigger. My decision for this is actually not about me. It's actually about showing true leadership into the future of this council and the future councillors.
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion?
I just got it's more of a statement, I suppose. I can see both sides of the argument here, and then I do. The gap is getting bigger, but and yes, the money for me would be handy. I have to pay people to fill in for a couple of my jobs, I suppose, at different times and juggle it around. But in saying that, I'd like to think the reason I got elected because all the volunteer work I do that's never get paid for. So it is I'm on the fence. I can see. I'm happy for it to stay as it is, but I do see the other people's point of view. But it wasn't a driving force on me being on here, and it's just to be honest, reward for all the years you do volunteer for your community. And at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. You're serving your community, and it's never money driven. But I do see both sides of the argument.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Taylor?
I too am with Councillor Guthrie. I didn't come to the table for the money. I didn't even know how much money it was. I was exactly the same. Do I need the money today? Again, no, I don't. But as Councillor Hancock said, it's not about us here today. It's about who's coming behind us. And the fact is, this just keeps moving. Like we were at 69 and now it's supposed to be 72, 174. It's going to go up every year whether we take it or not. And that's fine. I can sit here for the next 4 years on 69 or whatever it was. But it's the ones that come after us, the ones that are going to put their hand up and say, yes, we're going to take this pay rise. And by the time that happens, it's going to be probably 75. And they're going to get hammered because they just took a $6,000 pay increase on their first month in council. That's what it's about for me, trying to also open it up for those that would like to sit here and would like to turn it into something like a 25-year-old that's got to buy a car, got to buy a house, but is passionate about their town, is passionate about trying to get to the table to make a difference. That's who I would like. That's the reason I'm asking for us to consider just taking it up today.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak for the motion? I'll speak for the motion. As I've said, the the feedback I get from the community is $69,372 is generous for the amount of hours that councillors are here or seeing in the community. To give you an idea, I think it's there's a disconnect in people's thinking. The minimum wage, just searching that is, I believe, is $40,175, which obviously people say they cannot live on. This is $69,000 and it is not $372. It is not a full-time job. I do believe that people that stand for council stand for the reasons that they want to help the communities. I don't think that the number one thing is driving their decision. I do believe it's generous. I do think we need to set an example for the people of the Maranoa. I think there's huge inflationary pressures on the people of the Maranoa, and I do believe that we need to show leadership by not accepting a pay rise, which is our right as a council. Does someone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll speak against it, and I'll speak against the other two motions too, but I'll sum it up here. The debate that has just happened for the last 15 minutes is the reason why the government made the decision to introduce an independent remuneration tribunal. It was to take the issue around remuneration of local government elected representatives to a third party who do an independent assessment of the levels in which the particular categories in which we fall are remunerated. It's to take the politics out of it. And the last 15 minutes is politics. It's a populist decision not to accept a pay rise. It's offensive to sit here and to hear the debate characterised by particular councillors around you've got to be a business owner or not a business owner, or got to be a retiree or not a retiree. It shouldn't be categorised like that. It should be the community backing the people that they want to put in this place. And I don't say that to offend the councillors that have spoken before me. I say it because the government recognise that this should be taken out of our hands, just as it is at the state level, just as it is at the federal level, that there are independent tribunals to make these determinations. My concern is that we are getting further and further away from the determination that's been made for the last couple of years. True leadership would have been to move something. It didn't have to be all of it, but it would recognise that we accept that there are pressures in our community that would warrant a cautious approach from this chamber, but also accepting that there is movement across our industry in terms of remuneration. So true leadership would have been to move something, maybe not all of it. I share the concerns that have been expressed by a couple of the councillors in relation to future councils. We want a council that's reflective of all people. All people in our community just aren't people that run businesses. Just as I said, they're not all people that are retired. We need a cross-section of our community in this chamber, because that's reflective of the people that are out living in the Maranoa region. So I think it would have been far better to have moved something. I'm disappointed that a decision has been, looks to be made again in relation to the movement in terms of the REM. But I stress to the community that watched this, the independent remuneration tribunal was put in place to take the politics out of it, and it's been returned into this chamber again today.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, I think enough's been said.
Righto, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? 5-3 if I can call for a division.
Kelly?
We do have maps that have been handed out to councillors if you wanted to go back to item 8.1, or we can still...
Yeah, I think give the councillors time and we can
Good idea.
Righto, okay, 12.1,
What about
11.1,
11.1,
page
righto.
45.
What page was that, please?
45.
45. yeah. 11.1, monthly financial report as at the 30th of April 2022. Councillor Taylor.
I have a question. Am I allowed to ask that before the motion or?
I think from what we heard there, I think you can. Is that correct, CEO?
Look, through the chair, I think it's a good debate, is that the standing orders allow a request for information through the chair.
Yep.
If the question's around the debate,
No, it's not.
okay.
It's just
Yes.
to the officer,
So-
if that's okay, through
Yep.
you, Mr Mayor, to the officer. On page 46, it's got the finance costs. Can you just roughly tell me what the finance cost, what constitutes finance costs?
And material services.
I think finance costs to the chair, it consists of all our loans with QTC.
Loans. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a mover?
Sorry, I do have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead. Councillor Hancock.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, Madam CEO, if you could just, or to the officer, but through CEO, if you could just explain to us, I can see our employee costs are below because of the vacancies, but obviously that is now taking into, our directors are now into that column, aren't they? At the directors' wages? Or are they still sitting in materials and services?
Through the chair, councillor, you've got still a bit of a combination there. We've only got a number of directors that are now on payroll. We still have probably half the directors that are still coming out of materials and services.
And are we, because of course that's like 77%, so, and we've got a fair few positions that we're advertising at the moment, aren't we? Yeah, just,
Through the chair, yes.
yeah, and so that I would assume that figure would be going up.
Yeah, look, through the chair, certainly our forecast is that we'll be on budget. We might be slightly under budget by the 30th of June, but we're still expecting, we're still expecting to make some savings.
Okay. And my next question is, can you just explain to me again with the FAG grants?
Yes?
So the FAG grants we've received quarterly, so the 22 million that we're looking at, has that got any of next year's FAG money in it?
Look, through the chair, we have had an advance, but I just have to defer to Ramon to say what was the date of Receivable, simply because I think it's actually post the 30th of April. But I'll just ask that question. Are you aware of that?
I think we received it in April.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could confirm that date, and then I can share that with councillors. So it is included in here. So through the chair, just to pick up on probably an anomaly in relation to how the money has been advanced to us. We're normally receiving that at 50% advance. However, the federal government has advanced 75% of those financial assistance grants this year.
So just so I've got it clear in my head, how much of that 22.9 million is our FAG money for next year?
Look, I certainly can confirm that and share that information. I'll take that question on notice.
Because, I mean, here it says 13.65 million. So, yeah, it would just be, because if we're spending next year's money in this year's budget, I just think that's really important to know.
Through the chair, we get prepaid,
Yes.
essentially, and the Queensland's treatment of that money is to count it as revenue rather than a prepayment. The accounting difference is that a prepayment is a genuine liability. It's actually not cash coming into the accounts. In Queensland, what we do is we're certainly very aware that expenditure is for next year and it's allocated for next year, but you do need to read it in the context of when your final results come out, as at the 30th of June, they will have had a cash injection, which can often make your bottom line, look better than it actually
Yeah,
is. And it's
yeah.
really, you know, keeping true to that process and making sure that when we're looking at the wrap-up of the financial year, that we're asking the right questions about, well, where are we really at? Yes, we know we've got an advance payment there, but if we excise that out, where's our actual operating position?
Because can we roll that over to the next year? Can we actually take that out and roll it over for the start of the next year, or that's not?
We have accrual accounting, so the money is accounted for in the year in which it's expended, but it is all around when we've received that money. So we account for it this year, but we allocate the budget for next year. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. So if you could find that out, because that 13.65, if it is 13.65 million of FAG's money that is for next year, that severely affects our net operating result total as out of April.
Yes, certainly I will find that out. My understanding of, and I have met with the management accountant in relation to the results, is that the 13.65 is the actual payment, but what I'll tell you is what do we normally get, and the difference between this amount. We consistently get 50% in advance.
Yeah, I just want, how much of that $22 million is for next year? Yep, thank you.
Councillor Burkett.
Just to follow on that, so that would be the same every year. So if you took it out of one, that'd been like that for forever and a day, wouldn't it?
The feds have always been forward paying money. It's obviously, as you've heard, it's changed this year. They're paying more of it. But it has been, even in the last council, it's always been a bone of contention that you always got money that you shouldn't have got till next year, and
So it's
we
not
just have to deal with it, you know.
It's just 75% this year, not 50%.
Yeah, yeah. But it's always been a problem, and, you know, it's just different systems from the federal government to how we operate. Okay, do you want that information first, or do you want to move the motion?
Well, it might impact on the accuracy of the financials. Voting on that one.
Can I just ask again what the question was?
My understanding is, through the chair, is it won't affect the accuracy of the financial statements, but really what you're looking at is the bottom line. Is that a negative or a surplus? That's my understanding.
True, yeah,
of the
that's right.
question,
How much of
is
that
really-
22 is got money in it for next year of the 75%?
Theoretically, is
Yeah.
the difference between the $8.4 million surplus and the $13.6 million deficit, then you're saying, well, the council's still in deficit. What's, you know, where are we tracking in relation to the overall revenue? That's how I understand it.
Yeah, then that would be the accuracy of the financials, though, wouldn't it, in front of us? They could change the figures that are in front of us to either receive and note.
No, they won't change the figures, but what we can give you is a better
bottom line would
understanding
change,
of the
wouldn't it?
narrative.
No.
Yeah.
No, because that's how they account
Because
for it.
the income,
We're
the
accounting for it
income
in
still
the years
came
that it's
in, so-
received.
Mr
Yep.
Mayor,
Yeah.
because in the report, it clearly says that with the advance for 2022-23 of 13.65 million received in April, so that's clearly 13.65 of next year's money, is the way I read it.
But I was trying to then understand what the 2.2 million is as well. So if I could just have that figure,
Yeah,
that,
sure.
all of us, not just me,
Yes.
but that would be great.
Councillor Taylor.
I've just got a question on the rates outstanding balance for April 2022, and I'm on page 51. I don't know who I'm asking the question to. As of April, the 30th of April 2022, it says 6,653,520. But then when you go over to page 53, it says at the close of discount levy 1, value of outstanding rates is 9.8. What am I really looking at?
Through the chair, could I just ask you just to highlight those for me, and I'll certainly take that question on notice and get that information for you. On page 53.
On page 51, it says as of the 30th of April 2022, it was 6.6 million outstanding in rates. But then on page page
Certainly.
53, it says outstanding rates, but it says in charges, so there might be charges in there that's
Yep. I see
different
what
to
you mean.
rates. I don't
Yeah,
know.
just confirm the difference in the figures.
Just a question whether
Yeah.
it's only 6 or whether it's 9.
Okay, do you want to, someone want to lay this on the table to get that information, or do you want to make a decision on
I'm happy to move it.
it? Please go ahead.
That council receive and note the monthly financial report for the period ended the 30th of April 2022.
We have a seconder, councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going,
I do want to say something, Mr Mayor.
Please go
I just want to
ahead.
say thank you so much for the reporting. It is fantastic. It is so much information here, and it is really, really great to be able to understand it and even know, you now know what questions to ask if you're not quite sure of understanding. So I just want to say thank you so much for the reporting.
Thanks, Ramon.
I'd just like to endorse the same sentiments there. I think it is a lot different, a lot easier to follow, and there's some good results, and it does show a lot of good things we've been doing, which is good.
anybody else wish to speak? We're going to vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Item 12.1, tender 22037, drilling and construction of Mungallala Bore 4 award. Councillor Burkett.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that council select Drill Engineering and Pastoral Company Proprietary Limited, DEPCO, as the preferred tenderer for the tender 22037. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter in final negotiations with DEPCO Drilling Proprietary Limited, noting the submitted price of $258,509 excluding GST, with GST of $25,850.90 for a total price of $284,559.90 including GST for the completion of bore at Mungallala. Bore 4 at Mungallala.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor?
I also have a question.
Yeah, I do too.
I've got plenty of questions.
Yeah, okay.
I'll happy to second. But
Yeah, okay, so please go ahead, then councillor McMullen, then councillor Hancock.
through you, Mr Mayor. Hello, Graham. My question is, only one tender? Only one out of all those people that, Is that amazing? Is that normal?
One of the comments you got back through you, Mr Mayor, was that because it's a shallow bore, a lot of the contractors have got big rigs, and so they struggle to be economical on a shallow bore. And I think that could be the reason. Yeah.
Too small a job.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor
Yeah,
McMullen.
through you, Mr Mayor, I've got a question. I understand the only one contractor, but is this contractor using what I believe the correct casing, threaded casing and that? Because in the past I've raised questions with the welded casing. I'm not sure who's checking on the welded casing.
The casings are all documented in the shed, in the specification, and we'll ensure when they do the construction that they are using the correct casing. We have used this contractor in the past in council projects, and we've had really positive feedback about them.
That wasn't the question I asked. I want to know, is it threaded casing or welded casing? We need to know, and it should be in the specifications. And what are council asking for when they send the tenders out? Because we are getting discrepancies in pricing because some people are using different casings to others.
We allow threaded or welded, and it's up to the contractor to come back and nominate what they're going to use. Council accepts either option.
Can I ask who checks the welds when they do the welding, the proper procedures on any weld?
All of the boards that we've done so far have been threaded, so we haven't had to check any welds.
So do we know whether this is a threaded or welded, or they've given them options for both in the tender, have we?
The tender allows either option. I'm not sure which option they came up with. Yeah.
Well, I move we lay this on the table till we get further information about what the tender actually.
Councillor Hancock might have something, before we...
Councillor Hancock,
You wanted to ask something
Yeah, I do,
before we
but
move.
have we,
go ahead and then I'll move it, lay on the table.
I'd just like to know, are they local? Where are they from?
Rockhampton.
They're not local. The only local contractors are Johnson Drilling, and they didn't put a tender in.
Because they said it was too shallow.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Madam CEO, it would be really handy to, sometimes on these tenders, when we haven't seen the papers, to know where people are from, because you might not know.
Through the Chair, I asked the same question myself, and the manager was kind enough to give me that information. I was certainly happy to share that, because I think you sent me a copy of the detail of that as well, so
Thank
which
you.
I can share with councillors. But obviously what swayed me not providing any additional information was the fact that we'd only got the one response, so.
They're from Rockhampton, this company.
Oh, and I had an additional,
Please
I know
go
you're going to
ahead.
lay it on the table, just have an additional question. So when you only get the one tender, that you would still, I'm assuming the process would be you'd still have a figure in mind that you roughly think it should be coming in at. Yeah, cool. Okay.
Okay, so I moved that we lay it on the table to get more information about the question to do with what council would be getting if they approve this tender, to do with threading or not, and that we get to see those documents. All those in favour? 8-0. Item 13.1, update of Bassett Park improvements.
I've got a conflict.
No,
Yeah, councillor Ladbroke.
I have a conflict with item number 13.1, description update on Bassett Park improvements, declaring councillor is myself, councillor Ladbroke. The person with the interest is myself and my wife Alana. Particulars of interest: I am a community member of the Roma Turf Club and my wife is president of the Roma Show Society. Type of conflict, declarable conflict of interest, and the action I'll take is leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
Okay, thank you, councillor Ladbroke. Council, okay, 13.1, update on Bassett Park improvements. Do you have a question,
no,
councillor
I was going to
McMahon?
move it when
I've got a question. The price in there, have we got estimates from people that know that facility out there, or is that where did we get, like the estimate
So for
price
the-
or whatever?
The switchboard
Yeah.
upgrade?
Yeah,
We had some very high-level estimates and which we then look at and add in some extras because it's a brownfield site. We need to get we need to go get some engineering advice around how to design the switchboard, what the load needs to be and the like. And we've also allowed for project management costs as well. So it is a reasonable figure, which we hope we can get the work done by. But being a brownfield site, you just never know what might crop up. So we do have quite a large contingency.
councillor Burkett.
Yeah, I've got two questions. Yeah, we had part of our deputation out at the Bassett Park. A long-standing electrician knows it inside and out, so hopefully he's been in that negotiation. The other one is the grass. Is it, obviously not a good time of the year now, but could be in summertime. Is it that far gone that it has to be replaced? Because it's always used to be really good lawn, so it can't be revived, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I went out there for a site visit and I spoke to our staff member that looks after the Bassett Park area, and his recommendation was that we look to replace it. It's not a huge amount, and looking at the grass, there is certainly a lot of large patches in it. There is also a bit of weed starting to come through in some areas as well. And his concern was that it'd take a fair bit of effort to bring it back up to a good standard, whereas if we essentially replace it and returf that one stretch, it will be as cost effective and as easy for the staff as going the alternative method, which is trying to recover it, because there's going to be a lot of weed control that's going to be required.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Guthrie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my question would be, if we go ahead and spend this money to returf, have we got a plan have we adopted a plan to maintain it to a standard? Because it's only a short period of time ago that we had beautiful turf there, and it's been let slide. So my question is, it's all very well to returf it, but how are we going to ensure that the efforts are put in to maintain it? Other than that, the money is wasted money if we're not intending to look after it in the future.
No, we've certainly had some personnel change out at the Bassett Park area, and in the role as the local area director, I am looking at the ways in which we can apply the right resources to the various statuses of our parks and open spaces to make sure that we do look after our premier spaces to the right standard. My understanding is that there was a report prepared several years ago, I'm not sure of the timing around it, which did provide advice on how we can actually maintain our grasses and grounds out at Bassett Park. But for whatever reason, my understanding is it hasn't necessarily been adopted into practices, but we will revisit that and look to adopt it with our new staff out at that facility.
Okay. Councillor McMullen, did you want to move that?
Yes. Mr.
Yeah.
Mullen.
I just got one, I'm happy to second it. I was just wondering whether, just for you to consider whether you could add in there that to get an estimate from the local contractor
I think we've
that
got
has
Mr.
history.
Mayor. It says in here we've got it.
Yeah, through the chair on page 62.
Page 62. The local electrical contractor has provided high-level cost estimates for the switchboard.
Oh, right, okay. So I thought that was actually when the director said that they just,
No, it's right.
yeah, no, that's good. Councillor McMullen, go ahead.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that council, 1, receive and note the report, 2, fund the renewal and upgrade of Bassett Park's main switchboard located on the southern end of the grandstand as part of the 2022-23 capital budget deliberations. 3, consider funding the returfing of the grass in front of the Bassett Park grandstand as part of the 2022-23 operations budget deliberations.
So Councillor McMullen, with that, would you consider adding in the generator, because it was all designed at one time? We don't have the situation where you've got to all retrofit it and that, it's like a
Oh,
lot.
okay, Mr Mayor, dot point 2, include in there, make provisions for standby power.
Yeah, so include that in it so it's designed together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll actually have a backup there, out there, if we need it for disaster management.
Well, that was my point. Weren't we going to try and get a grant for that, or
Yeah,
we
I'm
thought
not,
we could get
that's,
funding?
all as I'm including is not the generator, just the provision that, so that when they do the switchboard, it's the right switchboard for the thing. Otherwise, we a lot more money than that.
And that's already in the report on page 62, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not the generator at this stage.
It's just making sure that they can
It
put a
can
generator
put one in
on the
there.
switch.
But what I mean is, and we can talk about it when we go in to do the budget, but if we don't get on that and do it together, because I'd actually be in favour of doing the generator, because every time you go to do it, they did it, but then all of a sudden it doesn't work and they need more work done.
I'll just read dot point 2 out again. Fund the renewal and upgrade of Bassett Park's main switchboard and make provisions for standby power located on the southern end of the grandstand as part of the 2022-23 capital budget deliberations. And 3 will be consider funding the returfing of the grass in front of the Bassett Park grandstand as part of the 2022-23 operations budget deliberations.
Yeah. So I'm happy to second that. Councillor McMullen, instead of 3, I have, and I think I'm going to bring up a report about, getting experts that are knowledgeable with turf. I'm wondering whether you'd consider we should get someone to have a look at it, because the grass, even though it's been let go, it's sort of native to that area out there. Maybe with the right knowledge, there is some way to revive that grass and deal with the weeds that are coming through.
Mr Mayor, I understand what you're saying, but from what I've seen, we've got acid grass. And I think the only one, and to get rid of the acid grass would be, I think the only way would be to returf it, but because if you try, you never get the lawn to grow back through acid grass. I've had that experience at home.
Might need a bit of work, but yeah, it's sometimes hard to get turf to keep, to embed sometimes.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, could you just put in consultation with a lawn expert? Isn't it just added into there?
Well, it's up to the mover if the mover wants to.
Well,
Because we're gonna, yeah, I'm gonna bring a report about how we, and I think we've already done it with one of our premier, like to get a bit more knowledge to say, have a look at it.
I thought, Mr Mayor, we already had an expert look at Bassett Park.
We have.
We've
Yeah.
had, and that report that you were talking about.
Yeah, I
has
think
come
that'll
to
be
the
in that
table.
report, yeah.
But not this area, I don't think, have we?
Well, they went Bassett Park full,
No, but didn't they
No, it was
just
just
do
the
the big oval? See, this is in front of the grandstand.
well, it's the same issue though.
No, well, it is that it might not have had the time, but like, all I'm saying is it could save.
Oh, what was, dot point 4,
Engage relevant experts.
engage the relevant expert. Or, engage or, negotiate maybe, for, what would you do?
Well, engage means the staff can go away
Yeah,
and
and talk,
find
right.
someone that has the expertise to help out.
Would you then make that number 3 and then make number 3 number 4?
Engage
And
the relevant
consider funding.
turf expert to,
To provide
for advice, provide advice.
prior to returfing.
Righto, I'm happy with that as seconder. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, Mr.
Prior to return.
Prior to returfing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the renewal to the switchboard at Bassett Park is imperative, as, well, a few councillors were there that night. If it fails, which it could fail at any time, Bassett Park, 90% of Bassett Park's out. So I think that's very, very important we get that done. Most of all that infrastructure, major infrastructure run off that switchboard, so that's why I'm suggesting we fund it, because it's very imperative that we do, I think.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against or for the motion? Councillor
Yeah, Mr.
Burke?
Mayor, I think, also, like Councillor McMullen, I think the power is a very important thing we need to get fixed. I think it's been obviously same as a construction time in 1969 or whatever, and it's been slowly added to here and there, and after talking to Brandy that night, it's a big issue, so I think, this is very, definitely need to be done.
Okay, I'll speak for the motion. I also believe it needs to be done, and I'd like to see we find a way, whether it's grants or whatever, to get the generator in as quick as possible, because as we've seen with major events that have just happened, when the power goes out, the mains power, it really stops the event. So it's a major facility that holds many events per year, and there's always a cost. And it doesn't really work out when they say, yeah, we fitted it up for that. Whereas if they've got to deliver it and make sure it works, it's far more cost effective and save council, a lot of money. So I think from a disaster management point of view, having Bassett Park with that ability, it's fairly high and dry there, that it could be another shelter for people. So I think there's a lot of benefits all the way around if we get this as well as a generator sorted as quick as possible. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Hancock?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. No, I just have an idea I'd like to put to the mover. Just talking about that, I'm just thinking, we sit here and we think about, we say we should look for a grant, but this resolution doesn't give us any instruction to the staff to go and actually look for the grant. I actually wonder if we should add in another point to say that council, look for is not the right word, but explore grant opportunities for the generator. Yep, for the generator, because then that then gives direction to the staff to actually go and do that via either the LDMG, which is a really good one, or other options.
Okay, so mover and second is happy with that?
Sorry, I'll just make sure the council explore grant opportunities for the generator. Yep.
Righto, so no one else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
We'll go to the-
Covered everything?
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
7-0.
7-0, good point.
Put you back, I suppose.
You've got to read it out.
Georgie.
No, see,
What's on there?
14.1, notice to rescind tenant agreement, Girl Guides Hut.
we do them at the end, I can go home.
You gotta do dib dib dob dob before you do whatever it is.
Just.
Declaration of interest.
Gotta call it, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I've called it, I've said,
Oh,
that-
yeah?
I've said it.
The item number is 14.1, description, notice of response, tenant agreement, Girl Guides Hut. Declaring councillor is myself, councillor Ladbrook. Persons of interest related party is myself and my wife Alana. Particulars of interest, my wife is president of the Roma Show Society. Type of conflict is a declarable conflict of interest, and the action I'll take is leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
It'd be a prescribed conflict of interest, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, are you happy to say it's prescribed
Yeah,
conflict of interest?
prescribed, yeah.
Okay, thank you, councillor Ladbrook. Okay.
Why is it prescribed? Just for curiosity.
Because Alana is the president of the show society, and this is
But he's declaring a conflict, it's him and her. He said myself, and
well,
that's probably not right then, eh?
no.
Well, he might be something in the committee, I don't know. Okay, so I'd like to move that council, 1, rescind resolution number OM/03 2022/25. 2, grant a trustee permit to the Roma Show Society incorporating a period of 1 year over the Roma Girl Guides buildings described as part of Lot 5 on Survey Plan 103335. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to finalise the terms and to sign the agreement and any associated documentation. Do we have a seconder?
Can I ask-
Councillor McMullen,
I've got a question.
please go ahead.
Through the chair, Manager Tenure, apologies. Would you just remind us what the resolution OM/03/2022?
Yeah, through the mayor.
It's
The resolution was that the Roma Show Society be given temporary use of the former Girl Guides huts as is for a period of 12 months with a nominal peppercorn lease of $1. So with the issue with the original resolution was when we've gone to action it, is the use of the word lease, being that it's reserve land, we're
Got it,
quite
yeah.
restricted in what we can and
Apologies.
can't do. So
Yeah.
council is going to achieve the same outcome, but through a trustee permit rather than a lease.
Okay, so we've got a move and a seconder. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Sorry, Mayor, it pays to read the bold. That's where I couldn't see it because it was bolded, which is a heading. So apologies. Thank you for that information.
Sorry, I do have one more question, Bob.
Yeah,
Just
councillor Hancock.
with reading that, it's really a matter of just interest, but, so a peppercorn lease, we charge $1, but a trustee permit, there's no charge?
Through you, Mr Mayor, with a lease, there needs to be some kind of payment. So it's always written in a lease that it'll be like often a peppercorn
Yeah.
payment, $1 upon receipt of an invoice.
Yeah.
There isn't a requirement with a trustee permit to have a figure in there.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
No one wishes to speak. We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour, 7-0. And we'll break for morning tea. Item 14.2, applications for community grants round 2, 2021-22. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council 1 endorse the recommendations of the assessment panel and approve the following community grant applications for payment. The Begonia Golf and Sports Club Incorporated as a small Senex grant to the value of $2,394. Surat and District Development Association Inc., a small Senex grant to the value of $3,000. Maranoa Netball Association, Small Senex grant, $1,193.75. Surat Sheepdog Trial, a small Senex grant to the value of $2,992. Surat on Boulogne Gallery, a small Senex grant to the value of $2,040. Calico Cottage Craft Club, a small Senex grant to the value of $1,161.50. The Roma Highland Dancers, a small Senex grant to the value of $3,000. Baringa Action Group, partly funded, Senex grant $1,200. Maranoa Basketball Carnival, partly funded through the Senex grant of $1,000, a total of $17,981.25. There were also the following: Muckadilla Community Association Inc., a community grant to the value of $8,450. Injune Camp Draft Association, a community grant, $5,500. The Roma Historical Precincts Inc., the Roma Butter Factory, community grant, $10,000. Roma Golf Club, partially funded out of the community grants monies to the value of $8,000. Let's Dance, the SDDA subgroup Surat, partially funded out of the community grant to the value of $3,300, which brought a total of $35,250 out of the community grants for an overall total of $53,231.25.
Councillor Ladbrook, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Guthrie.
Just on behalf of the Councillor Burkett and the other panellists who were part of this particular round and the discussions on the grants, we were absolutely blown away with the number of grants that were submitted. There were 17 small grants and 6 community grant applications, requesting a total of $82,000 odd, and unfortunately we didn't have $82,000 to be able to allocate, so some hard decisions had to be made, and hopefully we have funded to the best that we could to make sure that everybody got a look in. I do encourage those that were not successful this time to consider reapplying in the next round when there will be additional monies, but just really very impressed that there was enough of the money to be shared across all of the different localities, and there's been a very, very good series of projects that have been nominated for the monies.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0. Item 14.3, financial year 2023 fees and charges, airports. I'd like to move that so I've got a question first. On the deadline with this, obviously we've got other things we've got to discuss in this meeting. When's the deadline we've got to have this decision made by?
Deadline in terms of budget development or discussions?
Or no, like notifying the parties what the fees will be.
Well, I suppose there's already ongoing discussions separate to this with Rex Airlines. So I suppose that in terms of Rex, our current RPT operator, there's no set regulatory or industry deadline with them at current. In terms of the closed charter operators, so Alliance and Qantas, prior to the next financial year, I believe would be their preference, but currently because Qantas isn't the RPT operator, we don't have that established deadline where we used to submit our charges earlier.
Yeah, right, because the question is, should we consider this with the other things we're considering? Yeah, I move that we lay this on the table till later in the meeting.
Can I just ask a question while we've got?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Just through you, Mr Mayor. Can you just tell me what processing of payment concessions is?
The payment concession request is, so when an aircraft comes in and their aircraft classification rating is above that of what our runway is capable of taking or engineered, designed to take. So what happens in that situation is we'll then via email generate the payment concession request, which goes to council, and once I have your majority vote, I'll go back to the airline operator then.
It's $50.75 per flight, per aircraft,
Application.
per application. Okay, gotcha.
Currently, we don't
Oh, yeah.
charge it.
It's a one-off fee.
Oh, yeah.
When Alliance want to come in, or they've been the main ones anyway.
Yeah, okay, got it, thank you.
Councillor Hancock?
Just a question, Mr Mayor. How, through you, Mr Mayor, Manager Jackson, how did we come up with the $50.75?
So a few things went into the $50.75. So we looked at, we researched other airports that did charge a payment concession, costs associated with the processing of the concession, so cost of software, time for staff, and then also administrative time to send out to councillors, and then it was averaged out over 5 years with the number of concessions we do receive.
A follow-on question.
Yep.
When you did your research about other airports, do most regional airports charge a payment concession fee?
No, not many.
Yeah, okay.
No, yeah.
So they get charged for landing anyway, or is this the only charge they have?
This would be in addition to a head tax and a landing charge.
Right, so they do get charged, right, okay, thank you.
But this is, they're overweight on the pavement.
Maximum take away.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah. I just,
So this $50.75 wouldn't have any corporate overhead in that, would it? Because have you put in a corporate overhead cost of running council that would be in that? Or is that just the direct time it takes?
To calculate that figure, it didn't include a corporate overhead, no.
Righto. Okay, I'm going to move to lay this on the table till later in the meeting or a future meeting. All those in favour?
Which, today? No.
Yeah. Later on the meeting or a future meeting.
So they're two very different things. What's
Yeah.
that dependent on?
Today or tomorrow?
Well, what we decide with other things. So we can decide to bring it back or not.
so why don't we
Just lay it on
lay it
the
until
table
after
till later
we
in the
discuss
meeting.
that, and then you can change
Righto.
it
I'll
again.
move we lay it on the table till later in the meeting. 7-0.
So we'll need Jackson back, will we?
Not if no one's got any questions, we won't.
Well, I guess
Like on this one I'm talking about.
it'll depend on what comes out of the other.
Thank you. 14.4 Regional Art Development Fund, RADF, program in 2022-23, deed of variation. Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 provide the required contribution of $12,857 from Council's 2022-23 budget allocations, and 2, endorse the CEO or delegate to sign the deed of variation documents once received from Arts Queensland.
We have a second, Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to, say thank you to Regional Arts Development for continually putting this fund up. And they're rolling over they're just rolling it over so we didn't have to apply this time. I think it's fantastic to give the arts and culture community groups the opportunity to apply for this funding and to hold these workshops that actually put back into our community. And so I just want to say this is a fantastic program, and I just hope Council continues to endorse it.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Righto. We'll just pause and just wait for Councillor Burkett has just returned to be up to speed. page 87, 14.4 Regional Arts Development Fund, RADF program in 2022-23. We have a mover and a seconder. We've had one speaker to the motion. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
Thanks, Janelle.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've.
Item 17.1, request for remembrance wall. I'd like to move that council receive and note the correspondence as presented. 2, contact the resident to further explore details of their request. 3, include a remembrance wall acknowledging the people and history of pools in Roma as part of planning for the pool redevelopment and possible future stages. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition?
Question?
You have a question? Please go ahead.
So when you're talking about that, is it actually making a remembrance wall, or is it just making a wall on the pool where we're putting?
No,
Because
it'd
there's
just
a big
be,
difference in costs.
no, it'd be just part of the design that when we're looking at the design, somewhere there is a place to have the history of the pools.
Okay, sure.
And it would come back and all councillors would get feedback on that.
Yep, thanks.
Councillor O'Neill?
Just got a question. Or it might be a statement, I don't know, it might be a question. The author of the letter or the email that was sent to council talks about a remembrance wall, but from the rest of the text in the email, it suggests it's more of a historical, capturing the history of the pool, right? And the people that have worked there, the people that have swum there, the people that have gone off to, championships, etc. And I'm happy to be corrected, but the definition of a remembrance wall is about acknowledging, people that have, passed, and it is more fitting for, the war memorial or more fitting for a cemetery. I just wonder if we include a remembrance wall that's specific, we're then tying the resolution to that's what it's going to be called, when in fact it might be a historic depiction of, everything that has happened at the pool, and including the people that have been, star performers, etc. from the region.
Yeah, I think it's fairly general. We didn't.
I just looked up the definition before I said that.
That's what I was looking for.
And it's very much centred around cemeteries.
Yeah, well, it can be, but this is not a cemetery.
No,
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Accept that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
What's the one at the PCYC? What's that? That wall of heroes? Is that a wall of heroes or something?
Well,
It's an honour wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, honour.
It's just a matter of changing the name. It shouldn't be.
we have had and we will have a wall of remembrance for the Sayards. We have had it on the old building, the plaques of deceased people. Be it only half, or probably 8 or 10, but yeah. Yeah, I know what remembrance wall is.
But then in the letter from Linnell, she talks about all the great things that have happened and come out of the pool, which isn't just, it's not talking about people that have passed. It's talking about their contribution to the sport of the sport of swimming. So if we do this today, that's the direction we're giving staff. There's got to be a remembrance wall. I'm not against what's being proposed. I think it's admirable to acknowledge people that have served our community, but it's whether that's the right terminology.
And just, if I could just mention, the word you used was contribution. Maybe it's a contribution wall.
Or honour.
Or honour.
Honour is a lovely word. That's a nice word, honour. You're honouring what people have done.
Or maybe it's not a decision for today, what it's called is my point.
Righto, well, I'm happy to take out remembrance and just leave the rest of it in. And is the second,
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, just include a wall that acknowledges the people.
but yeah, Okay, so I'll speak to the motion. This is not just about, obviously, the correspondence, and I appreciate the correspondence from Linnell. But this is about the bigger picture of if you've grown up here and been here as a long-term resident, you'll understand how many people have been the people that actually ran the pool and contributed to generations of children growing up learning swimming. It was probably the biggest, most exciting thing is to go to the pool. There was a lot of people that were involved in that, and obviously this letter is about one snapshot, but there's far more than this. So I think when council is looking at doing a new pool, I think this is a great opportunity as part of the planning, so it's minimal cost to actually, you know, maybe work with partners and Roma family history, and there'll be so much that we can do if we decide today to put aside this as something that we're going to do, and it would be just done with the planning. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor McMahon?
No, I'm just going to make a comment that one of the very long-term contributors to the pool still has family living in this town as well, so, yeah, would be a good thing to do for everyone.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak? Okay, yeah, I do agree that, and even if they're not here, they've made a massive contribution. It would be great to hear their stories, and it would be very sad if we ever lost anyone in our pools of Roma, but we can also put that in as well, because that's history and family might come through. So there's a lot of history over the years of the different pools and the operators and the people that have performed for Roma and abroad, further afield. So yeah, looking forward to if it's supported today. Okay, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour, 8-0.
We circle back to 8.1.
No, I'm just going to ask Mr Mayor what he's saying, before we go to close, we need to add another item.
We've got other late opens to go through as well. But before we get off this one, should we go back to 8.1 now that we've got the maps?
We can do 8.1 if you would like to.
It's page 31.
So page 31.
Uh, 8.1, proposed sale of Newbon Street, Roma. Does anyone wish to say anything since we've had the maps there? One thing I'd like to say, to me it highlights more of the reasons that I think before any decision made, we should be actually asking and looking if we have any strategic value for especially the drainage and the other things for a long-term strategic needs for council.
Are you speaking against it again?
No, I'm just making a statement after we've had these maps, which we didn't have before we spoke to it.
We're back in the debate though, aren't we? So
Yes. Yeah, so if anybody else would like to say something now that they've had the maps.
We just need to, it's just been laying on the table, we're moving it back into the chamber.
Okay,
So do I have to move it all again?
well, the mayor just calls the item.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think I've already called that, so, Councillor Hancock?
Just a question, through you, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor, Jeff, could you explain to me, you know the water issue that we were talking about the other day from over that side?
That's right over the other side.
I see.
Yeah, would this, in your opinion, would this land be needed to fix any of that might happen?
It won't, no, the issue there is just erosion right on the side of the road. once it gets out into this paddock, and gets about where the junction is there, it's basically just, there is a little bit of a gully in it, but it's just low-lying area right through there.
And so really, to fix that other problem, we're fixing it more up
Right on
there instead of down here is what I'm saying. You wouldn't think we'd need this land to fix that problem?
Not to fix that particular
Okay.
problem, no.
Okay.
That's just where it's eroding, right where it comes across the road there at the corner of that yellow line.
Yep,
And that's where the problem is there.
okay.
Fixing that'll have no whatever they gotta do, they'll have no bearing on the rest of the drain.
And
Yeah, thank you.
through you, Mr Mayor, and that's a separate, that first block is of someone's private land anyway, isn't it?
On that side of the
Yeah.
road, that's correct, that's a
Yeah.
different owner, yeah.
So that's, another question, Mr Mayor. The only thing that I could think of down the future, but this might be a perfect spot for someone to buy the full block, is that road frontage across from the golf club, that little squared or section there. But if someone buys that, that's probably the perfect spot to put a house, I suppose.
And then even in Edward Street South, I think it is, in the other corner, there's room there.
Yeah.
Sewage lines through.
A little bit of, so the sewage line's up in that
See the
cemetery.
Little green line there.
Just, oh yeah, your green, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's not the bit, yeah.
But that whole flood area, yes, definitely you can't build on, but
No.
it's a slow, undulating country, you know.
Oh, I have another question then.
Please go ahead.
Sorry. Danny's not here, but say we sold this by open tender and someone wants to build on it. Do they then have to come to council and actually, does council then get to have a say on where they build on that property?
Oh, yeah, like
Yeah.
any block, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the last thing we want to do is have a house built where it shouldn't be built if we're giving them that opportunity, but.
Planning will stop that.
Yeah, so planning would stop that. Yep, okay.
Or have a say. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So, CEO, have your departments had have they had an ability to comment on whether any departments would want this land strategically in the future for anything?
No, through the chair, no. At this stage, it's been the notice of motion by the councillor, and we've provided those maps, and certainly council's asked for costings, but no, we haven't assessed this proposal.
I move that this lay on the table till council departments can comment on whether there is any strategic future use for the land before this is dealt with at council. All those in favour?
So council who, sorry? The
I move that,
Department of Councils.
no, the different departments of council can comment on whether there is any strategic use for the land in the future before this motion is voted on. All those in favour? All those against? So that's 4-4. And I'll vote for the motion, so it's laid on the table if I can call for a division. Okay, now we're moving on. Councillor McMullen, did you have something you wanted to?
Sorry, that was laying on the table to later in the meeting, so that the departments will provide commentary by the end of the meeting?
No, not all the departments. I would expect we'd get it back at the next meeting for the staff. That's what I never said at the end of the meeting. We can play the video back.
No, I know you didn't say that. You didn't say anything.
Yes, I did. I said the motion.
Did you say that it goes to the next meeting, next
You said
later?
No, but I didn't say it was going to be today either.
Just want to have the information.
So CEO, how long would it take for all the departments to comment on that? Is it something for today or would it be the next meeting?
Look, through the chair, if you're looking at a strategic use, I think we do need some time. Whether that's
Question was,
council,
Mr Mayor, you have to say whether you want it today or next meeting.
whether it's
You
to a
just said
briefing
laying on
or
the
next
table,
meeting.
I don't think you said we-
Well, we can do it again. I'd defer to the CEO when she could, as soon as they have done it, bring it back and then it would go back on the agenda.
So, yeah, certainly through the chair, happy to consider that either at a briefing or a meeting, whatever council's decision is. Yes.
Well, it can't be, well, it wasn't resolved, it was just to lay it on the table.
No,
so
laid on the
no.
table to get the views from the different departments of council.
Strategic use.
So I can't say how long that's going to be, but it's not at this meeting.
Through the chair, what we could do for you is if you want to lay it on the table for the meeting, we could go and ask staff that and just say how much time would you need, and if that assists you, to come back to you in relation to
Just a
that.
future
Why don't we
meeting.
just,
Just a future meeting.
why don't we just clarify and just say, lay this on the table until a future meeting?
Righto. I'll move that we lay this on the table till the future meeting for all the departments of council to comment on the strategic future use of the land. All those in favour? All those against? So which way?
At 4-4?
Yeah, councillor Ladbrook, which way did you vote for that? The first. So 5-3, if I can call for a division. Okay, councillor McMullen, did you have something that you wanted?
You just missed out the word table as well up the
We're
top.
going into close now, Mr Mayor, we're going to do this.
We've got all
Got
the-
laid
Two
over.
right, you've got, they've still got a number of late items through the chair.
So we can do late items, but we can bring up a notice of motion any time. L1, the big rig Roma admissions. I'd like to move that council receives and notes the report in setting the 1st of April 2023 to 30th of March 2024 entrance fees. Set and exercise 2. I might actually have a question. Do we have any requests to use it for exercise at the moment for sessions from the community members?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Unfortunately, our coordinator is currently on leave this week. When I spoke to her in finalising the report, she had spoken to the exercise groups, but at that particular point in time, I don't believe she'd actually received an application or a request to be able to use the facility.
Righto.
I have questions.
Please go ahead.
If you go on to page 7 here, it says number of runners. I don't get that whole number 2 at all.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't understand what that even means. Page 7.
Access fees, number
Yeah.
2.
So if you could explain that to me first, probably would be a good thing.
So in trying to, there's probably a bit of my thought processes written down here in the report as I was trying to work out a particular price to set for runners. So we have a cost to open the facility for runners to be able to use it. And then depending on how many runners would be at the particular session running, it would be the cost per runner based on how many runners we actually had. So the more runners you have, it would be at a lower cost per runner. So
That's total cost, I think, that $40. That total cost for that
Total
session.
yeah, so if we only had one runner,
It's a session though.
so we've got 2 sessions. One, if it's a weeknight session where it's immediately after we've closed the big rig to tourists, or then if we have a weekend session, which would be immediately before we open the big rig, for example. And the reason why there's slightly different rates is that we have to pay our staff overtime on a weekend compared to a weekday.
So Saturday from 8:30 a.m. till 9 a.m. If I'm a runner that wants to do the stairs, it's going to cost me $19.50.
If you're the only runner.
If you're the only runner.
If you're the only runner in
Need to
that
take
running
20
group.
others.
Take 20 friends and it's only $1 for you.
But if you were a runner in a group of 20 runners, it would have essentially cost $1 per runner.
So my question is the time. So what is it during the week?
During the week, on a weekend, it would be $39 essentially for that
So
half hour.
This one here says weeknights.
Night, yes. So the weeknight, for example, would
Okay.
be 6. So this is just based on conversations that Justine had with the various running groups that they currently have groups organised on a Saturday morning or a Wednesday night.
What if I wanted to get up at 6 o'clock on Tuesday and go for a run up and down the stairs? Is that, it's not there? Are we looking at doing anything like that for them? Because all the feedback I've had is they're going to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning wanting to run stairs.
So we can certainly offer that. That would be at a significantly higher cost because we would have to bring a staff member in at that particular point in time. And I believe the EBA certified agreement.
Then they'd have to hang around till 9 o'clock anyway. To
Yes,
start.
so it would be
it's all-
substantially
It's
higher.
all geared on staffing.
Yes.
Be no different to a pool, like the pool.
Is there any way around staffing?
For one staff member to remain, to either come in half an hour early or stay half an hour later, that would cover the cost of that. And I've only included the staff cost.
Yeah, just to have that person come in early.
So,
Have we explored the no staff at all? Well, I'm asking, like, you know, PCYC, you get a thing and you dab it in and away you go. I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
through the chair, you'd have to figure out how you could give access outside of hours, because as the local area director said, is staffing is the biggest issue, and we've got some industrial obligations there. Council could work through a process. We explored, well, what would the cost of putting a swipe card or something in that allowed people to enter the site, but they might only be able to enter the site under the supervision of a particular group. So whilst there might be 20 runners, it might be one private individual
swim
that's
club for
taking the
swimming.
risk. There could be any number of options. It's just about costs. You would need to have securitized access. Why? Because it's an expensive site. You would also need to make sure that if they weren't being supervised, that council's insurance could adequately cover any issue.
I know there's
And, so you could explore
I know
through
there's a
those
big
things.
process to do. I'm just
Yes.
asking, are we going to think to maybe look into that? Because I think it would be a great thing if we could utilise these stairs as much as we possibly. I'm not talking about the lift. I'm just talking about exercise.
okay,
it's not on the
is
table now.
councillor Burkett,
No, well, that was sort of answered. I was on the same thing, but I totally understand that now. But yeah, I'd just, the only thing I'd be worried about, and I do equate it to swimming, a swim club.
councillor Burkett, is it a question?
Well, just comparing, it's like the swim club situation with the pool. If it's the park runners, get their accredited people, hopefully that fits the insurance bill, because I'm a bit worried that, not that a staff member down the bottom is going to be able to stop someone from tripping over at the top. You don't want them to be holding their hand, but yeah, I think we need to get that part of it definitely right.
Councillor O'Neill?
Two thoughts for me. One is whatever we do, it should be a trial, and get feedback and then adjust based on need and feedback and whatever. I wonder if today's not the right time to be doing this. Maybe best that we defer it to a briefing and not only just talk about the access for exercise, but whether we've got the times right. I've had people talk to me about how wonderful it looks of a night, and we had that great opening last week, and people were up there taking photos, and they look wonderful. Well, we're shutting it now at 5:30. Is there some nights that we should be opening it more, or what? I think there's more to this now that probably warrants it being laid on the table until a briefing, and then to come back, more informed. What my contribution will be.
Because there's really no hurry, because this is 2023 we're talking here.
Well, there's actually one thing that I wanted to do today. I'm going to put it in the motion. Receive a note, so I've got that. You got a question, Councillor Hancock?
Yeah, I do, thanks.
Please go ahead.
Mr Mayor. Through the chair, Director Anna, just help me understand a little bit more. The resolution says set the exercise access fee, so $40 per session, right, or $20 per, depending on the day. I understand that. But then there was just a comment made before which made me question that I don't understand it. So that's $40 whether one person is doing it or whether 10 people are doing it. Because I note over here you said, well, it's $19.50 if it's one person. For me, that's $40 no matter how many people's doing it. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Through you, Mr Chair, my assumptions when I was preparing the report that it would be through like an organised sporting group of some sort. So then that would be the cost, the fee would cover our costs, and then how many people they actually had, they would have their own pricing structure within their own running group or park run or
So they
whatever
can
it may be.
Potentially, they could make a bit of coin off it.
So I understand that now. I just wanted to make sure. There was just a comment before and I thought, oh, am I reading that right? So, yep, thank you. And Mr Mayor, I agree. I think I think this is a wonderful asset and we need to really flesh out what we can use with it.
I agree too. Can we also, at the briefing, have some discussions about the ongoing costs?
Yeah.
I know it's probably coming to us for budget, but if we're going to have a briefing, we may as well talk on the lot.
Well, it's in here too, Jeff, but let's talk about it. I think it's important.
So Mayor, I'll move a procedural motion that this lays on the table until the next ordinary of meeting for us to have a briefing on all things to do with fees and charges and admissions and opening times to do with the big rig.
So I'll speak against that.
Can't speak against a procedural motion, it just has to be put.
Yeah, we just have to vote on it. So.
Righto. All those in favour? All those against? 7-2 if I can call for a division. 6-2 if I can call for a division.
Just not wishing to enter the debate, there is a deadline for marketing around fees and pricing, and perhaps just the officer could bring that along to the briefing as well.
Through you, Mr Chair, I've sought some clarity from the coordinator. So our fees for 2022-23 have already been set, so we can make changes if we choose to, but we would just have to honour the pricing that was in our price list when the bookings were made.
Yeah, for the people with the bookings. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, with that briefing, will we, given the resolution, will we set those prices?
Well, they're already in there.
Yeah, but who set them?
They did them before.
I just have a question.
Through the chair, sorry, yeah, keep going.
Is it our job to set the price or is it staff?
No.
Fees and charges.
Council does, yeah. You can get recommendations from the staff, but
They need to probably have recommendations for the costs and then
yeah.
we can probably, otherwise we'll just keep going around in circles. We've got to work out.
It's all in this report.
And through the chair, I think the fees are set in the February of each year, so that they have the lead time in the brochures, etc. Anyway.
Okay, L2, Roma Neighbourhood Centre.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that council acknowledge OM/11 dot 2021/84. B, note that as an outcome of the recent consultation on the 18th of May 2022, 7 persons expressed interest in being part of the committee for the incorporated body for the Roma Neighbourhood Centre, C, allocate $20,000 from the 02701.2094.2001 for legal services in 2022/23 budget period for the setup of an incorporated association for Roma Neighbourhood Centre. And 4, authorise the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to progress the setup of the incorporated body. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition?
I've got a question.
Please go ahead.
Through the chair to the author of the report, and I recognise I submitted this as an S170A only last night, and so the time frame was tight. But I just sought some additional information in respect to the report, and the questions I've got for the author is, can council be provided with an attendance list of who the 20 people were, and the names of the 7 people who are interested in forming the incorporated entity? and whether they are representing an organisation in town or whether they're in a private capacity.
Through the chair, I mightn't be able to answer the third, but I certainly can provide details of the first two.
Okay, so I'll lay this on the table till later in the meeting. All those in favour? 8-0.
You've got those items now, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, councillor McMullen.
Suggest, well, ask if we're gonna add an additional item to the an additional confidential item to the agenda, please.
Please go ahead.
I go straight into it?
Yep.
That a further,
You're just moving that you're adding LC5.
yeah. Oh, yeah, good, yeah, I can see that. Further item be added to the confidential agenda. LC5, request for extension of discount period, assessment numbers 150200167 and 180522.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition?
Just a question, Mr Mayor.
Please go ahead.
There obviously is some sort of urgency to this for it to be added today.
Yeah, because if we don't do it, they'll lose their discount period.
Sure, thanks.
That's a statement of reasons if anyone wants it, is for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for the
No, that's
allow
fine,
time
that's
for
fine.
council to
Yeah.
assess do that and evaluate the loss of capital.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, do we have anyone to go into closed? Councillor O'Neill.
I move that in accordance with the provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the council resolve to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that its councils consider is necessary to close the meeting in accordance with section 254J5 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. The following table provides the matters to be discussed, an overview of what is to be discussed while the meeting is closed. C1, write-off amounts in accounts receivable. C2, Department of Resources renewal of lease multiple arrangements. C3, repeal council resolution for rate assessment 140-33237. C4, P&E appeal 2901 of 2021. C5, lot 2 of SP 123777. C6, Rex partnership proposal. LC1, program funding update Australian Government's remote roads upgrade pilot program. LC2, major building contracts alternative arrangements for unfixed plant and materials. LC3, CHL deed of agreement. C4, Boo Book correspondence. LC4, Boo Book correspondence, and LC5, request for extension of discount period assessment numbers 150200167 and 180522.
Just before we ask for a second, I'll just confirm, as I have done before, that I've already declared on C4, P&E appeal. So I'll just be leaving the room when that's on. Okay, do we have a seconder for closed? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? And we got that extra one in there, did we? The L?
Yes.
Yep. All those in favour? 8-0.
Hello, let's go.
Kel, where are we starting? C1? Oh, C1.
C1?
C1E, that'd be page 3.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, I know you
Memory?
did, but,
Start at the very beginning.
okay, we'll find out who did it before.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, it's 14, yes. Oh, do you want a pen?
I got one over there,
I've got another one here too.
oh, thanks.
There you go.
C1, write-off amounts in accounts receivable. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that council approve the write-off of sundry debtor account debts as presented, owing to the current status of being irrecoverable to pursue further recovery action.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition to the motion? Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Anyone want to speak for or against? All those in favour? 7-0. C2, Department of Resources Renewal of Lease Multiple Arrangements. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Hancock.
I move that council advise the Department of Resources that 1, council has no objection to the term lease being renewed over the reserve described as Lot C on WV 11888 and Lot 21 on WV 1334. 2, council has no objection to the term lease being renewed over the reserve described as Lot 9 on CP 911769. 3, council has no objection to the term lease being renewed over the reserve described as Lot 115 on DL 426 on the condition that the use does not interfere with the operation of Tomo Road. 4, council has no objection to the term lease being renewed over the reserve described as Lot 42 on CP 846814.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition to the motion? Mover wish to speak to the motion? Anyone want to speak for or against? All those in favour? 7-0.
26.
C3, that should be page 26.
Repeal council resolution for rate assessment 14033237. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move the council repeal resolution OM 04.202290 stating 1, grant a waiver. Oh no, I won't do that. Just repealing that resolution and replace it with 1, grant a waiver using the correct water usage charges for the period of the 1st of July 2021 to the 31st of December 2021 for the value of $827.99. Credit assessment 1403337. Debit 1110.0100.0020. 2, grant of waiver using the correct water usage charges for the period 1st of January 2022 to the 30th of June 2022 for the value of $283.98. Credit assessment 1403337 and debit rates 111.0100.0020.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Taylor. Mr Mayor, do you want to take over?
No,
We call
he's
it.
got the next one. He's got a conflict.
You've got to call this now because you started
Okay,
it.
right. Any opposition? Anyone wants to speak for or against? All those in favour? 7-0. There's a conflict, the next one, is it?
Yeah. C4, page 30.
No.
414, yes, and
Okay.
page 30, yes.
The Mayor's left the room. C4, subject heading P&E Appeal 2901 of 2021. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 accept the appellant's offer of settlement as outlined in the letter attached to the officer report dated the 12th of May 2022, and 2, acceptance of the offer is subject to the settlement occurring on or after the 1st of July 2022.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Mover wish to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I just left my hand up because I put it up first and you just don't look this way and it was stuck. I couldn't
I'll
believe
get to
it.
next time.
I couldn't believe it.
So anyone, no opposition? I would put it to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0.
Good try.
He's worse than Tyson.
Yes.
They scan it next time.
Oh, I'm not going to bother anymore.
So, someone get the mayor?
Get the man to.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay. So we've got an email here from.
Yeah, I think
Maranoa.
Joe said that Kel's got it.
Oh, right, okay.
C5. I didn't get to correct my mistake.
No, no.
And so we're at page 37.
C5, lot 2 on SP 123777. We have a mover, councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 note receipt of the correspondence from the owners of Lot 2 on SP 123777, dated 24th of May 2022. Number 2, adopt the revised draft debt borrowing policy 2021-22, revised date 25th of May 2022. 3, provide an offer consistent with option 1 to the owners of Lot 2 on SP 123777 in relation to the lot. And 4, in accordance with section 4.3 of the revised debt borrowing policy 2021-22, fund the offer via an internal loan from the gravel pit reserves.
We have a seconder. Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
No thanks.
We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
42.
Should we?
Do we leave that one to the
Maybe-
last
yeah,
and
should
wait
we
for the,
wait for the
maybe we get a
response?
reply from them?
Yeah.
Did you just want
We just lay that on, I move we lay this on
Yeah.
the table to later in the meeting.
Yeah.
All those in favour? 8-0.
So,
LC1.
where next, Kel?
LC1.
LC1.
LC1, program funding update, Australian Government Remote Roads Upgrade Pilot Program. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 receive and note the report by way of update on the Australian Government's Remote Roads Upgrade Pilot Program. 2, authorise A, the Mayor to write to the Honourable Anthony Albanese MP, Prime Minister of Australia, with a copy to the Honourable Dr Jim Chalmers MP to seek clarity on the new government's position on the Remote Roads Upgrade Pilot Program. B, the Mayor to write to Senator the Honourable Murray Watt to invite him to visit the Maranoa and advocate the importance of the projects announced for the Maranoa under the Remote Roads Upgrade Pilot Program. And C, the Chief Executive Officer to formally write to the South West Queensland Regional Organisation of Council to seek further support by way of advocacy in relation to the allocation to relevant member councils under the Remote Roads Upgrade Pilot Program.
We have a seconder, councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Just to say, Mr Mayor, I think it's vitally important that we engage with the new Commonwealth Government as soon as we can. The announcement that occurred only weeks ago in terms of investment into the region is essential. We're a small regional council and partnership dollars that come from the other levels of government are a huge uplift for the delivery into, in this case, our road networks. And so therefore I think it is pertinent that we acknowledge the change of government and seek their endorsement and support of this particular funding commitment from the Commonwealth Government.
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion or against? I'll speak. I would congratulate the new government on election, federal government, and I hope that they see the value of this program from a productivity point of view, to bring in gross national product from how we can shift freight around the state and interstate. And these improvements are really going to make a difference to get produce where it's got to go. And so really this is a productivity initiative that be looking forward to working with the federal government on. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Does Move wish to sum up?
I do not.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
Should be page 15.
LC2, major building contracts, alternative arrangements for unfixed plant and materials. Councillor Ladbroke.
I'd like to move that council approve the chief executive officer or delegate and an increased level of flexibility in relation to the management and payment of project-specific unfixed plant and material for a number of current building contracts underway across the Maranoa region, and 2, approve the above arrangement for the current contracts listed in this report, and for a period of no longer than 6 months from the date of this resolution.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to Councillor
Yeah,
Ladbroke.
I just think it's really good for small business, and it just gives them that little bit of flexibility. Just the way things are at the moment with pricing and everything, so it's very good.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. LC3, CHL deed of agreement. Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council A acknowledge resolution OM/04.2022/35. B, authorise the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to execute the confidentiality deed between Community Housing Queensland Limited and Maranoa Regional Council.
We have a seconder. Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're
No,
going to go
thank
to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
Page 34.
LC4, Boo Book correspondence. Councillor O'Neill.
I move that Council 1 receive and note the correspondence. 2, commend Boo Book on raising the initiative outlined in the letter dated the 28th of April 2022 and the preceding briefing that was held with Council. 3, give in principle support to the concepts outlined in topics 1 and 2 and confirm A, willingness to provide letters of support in relation to funding, support the nomination of a council officer as a representative to the working group to progress the concept of potential locations for the infrastructure near or within the national parks, support council staff working closely in relation to the potential to advance other initiatives as outlined in the letter, advise Boo Book about council's community grants and assistance policy and other relevant policies such as disposal of non-current assets, and 4, respectfully decline the offer to train council staff for snake capture and relocation as it's outside the scope of council-related activities.
We have a seconder. Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? And we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 7-1 for division. Okay.
C6.
C6. No, we don't have a number for us.
I got it, Mr Mayor. 5, LC5.
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 Oh, sorry.
LC5, request for extension of discount period, assessment numbers 150202167 and 180522. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that, excuse me, Council resolve pursuant to section 121C and 121 B of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to agree to grant a concession by way of an extension to the discount period and deferment of the payment of rates and charges levied on assessments number 150-20167 and assessment number 180-522 for a period of 30 days from the due date of the last rates notice issued on 16th of March 2022 for each of the properties until these assessments can be discussed in a briefing. The statement of reasons would be to ensure an extension to the discount period to allow time for council to assess and evaluate the loss of capping in line with council's current policy at the next council briefing.
I'll second that.
We have a second, and councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Righto, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
So just to give more time for that correspondence, in our confidential, should we go back to finishing the ones in, what have we got left in our? So,
Beg your pardon?
yeah, did we do 8.1?
Yes, we
Have we done it?
No, 8.1. Which one's 8.1?
Yours.
It was laid on the table.
Yeah, we laid it on the table, we laid 12.1 on the table.
8.1's been laid on the, oh yeah, it was laid on the table
Yeah,
till,
we got the information.
Oh, to a future meeting, that's
Future
right,
meeting,
that's
righto.
right. So, yeah, 12.1, thanks, Kel.
20.3.
and L2.
What's the next one, Kel? 12?
56, Jeffrey.
6.
The tender one.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I started to move. I think,
What did we do with it?
I moved it, yeah.
Oh, and you want to know about
Welding or
Millsdale or something?
threading.
Yeah, we've got that email. So we happy now?
Jeff, councillor.
Well, I think we're going to have to go with this one. I'm not happy about it, but I've got a. Well, I'd just like to. I'll probably, if I can move it, Mr.
I
Mayor.
already moved it.
Oh, you've moved it, right? Can I?
That's right.
We-
Councillor Taylor. Yep.
Beg your pardon?
Has the mayor called it?
Well, I've got to move in a second.
Yeah, the mayor hasn't
No, no, but-
called it yet.
No, I haven't called it.
Where's
So
one
what
and
was the
two, Kel?
information that came back?
Email.
Certainly, through the chair, the specifications were circulated. What we do know is that both options are definitely included in the award of the contract.
Yeah.
And should the welding casing option be pursued, it certainly needs, there's a specification detailing what is actually required by council.
Yeah.
I just have
So
a
it's gonna be
question, Mr
certified.
Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Councillor McMullen, can you explain the difference?
Well, they weld it together instead of screwing it together.
Screwing it,
It's as
tying
simple
it.
as that.
So you got that much thread as opposed to one bead.
One bead of welding.
Can I move? Well, we've got to move in a second, haven't we?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Well,
Do you want to add to it?
well, I was just going, but did you got a question
I've got
for?
a question to the CEO. Can it be laid on the table to find out how much it is going to be if it's?
We've got that, Mr. Mayor.
it's,
Extra.
So,
25,000.
through the chair, the award of the tender does allow both options. Certainly, further correspondence from the officer says that I think there was a concern around the adequate supervision of the welding process to make sure that it was done properly in accordance with the specification, which will lead to
criteria.
the longevity of the bore itself. Certainly, what the officer has advised me is they actually don't oversee every weld. They actually rely on the contractor to actually do the work in accordance to the spec. They could get it independently certified at the end of the process. There's just an additional cost.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, they could.
What our, they're talking about our spec. There is a specification under the body that says what has to be done to weld it. That's, our spec doesn't say anything, so we can't, but I would like to, well, when, I want to wait for everyone to ask a question.
Well, can't we just, if they've allowed for both, can't we specify that they use the threaded pipe?
But then we've got to pay more money.
25,000.
Well, they get inspected by putting the camera down, checking every weld.
No, they do it as they go. They will.
No, independent assessor's not going to sit out there and that's going to be another
Please.
cost too.
Can I move an amendment or an
I haven't
addition?
called it yet. Item 12.1, tender 220837, drilling and construction on Mungallala Bore 4 award. Now, we have a mover and a seconder. Councillor McMullen, do you want to
Just
move?
like to add a dot point 3. I would like council provided with photographic evidence of the wells, I don't know how to word it, as some of the wells. That makes,
I don't know. Yeah, you're not going to see too much from it.
yes, you are. We'll see it if it's done properly, trust me.
Well, I'm not saying you can't, but I'd like to think these guys are staking their business reputation on. You'd like to think they're going to do it right. I don't know.
Can I ask, because it's a 100-year infrastructure, do we have funding to be able to do the threading?
Or
Yes, yes, through the chair, the award, the amount allocated to the tender does allow for both options. Certainly what the officer is suggesting is you can get it independently certified
Just
at
but-
the end.
You got to, sorry,
Not at the
Mayor,
end,
just
you
with-
can't.
you know, I know it's late in the day. You've got to deal with the amendment now. Whether the mover and seconder accepts it, if they don't, the amendment, you need a seconder for the amendment.
Well, it makes it hard because
So, I mean, the question, the mayor has to ask, do you accept or not? Like,
You can't have a question in that time.
but your question's not relating to whether we get a photo of, well, it wasn't relevant to the
Well,
amendment.
it is, because it's relevant whether I would support the photographic evidence, because that's why I was wanting to know whether we can.
Mr
afford
Mayor,
to do it.
I think what the CEO just read out, you can't get the evidence once it's down the hole.
And through the chair, I think what councillor O'Neill's saying is you need to work through the amendment. But
Yeah,
the
the-
mayor is saying is it a valid amendment? You know, is it a valid
It's an
motion
amendment.
to
Of course
ask
it's
for
valid.
something
Oh, right.
that you mightn't be able to get?
Oh,
No,
mate.
no, what I'm actually asking is, do we have enough money to go the threaded option?
Yes.
We do.
That's,
Yes.
with all due respect, that's not relevant to whether we take photos of the world or not.
It is when I come to voting on this, right? So, councillor McMullen has proposed an amendment. Do you have a seconder for that amendment?
Now, you seek whether the mover and the
Does
seconder.
the mover support that amendment or not?
I had a question so before I can't make a question.
You can do a question, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, because we've all got to be informed before we make a decision.
Well,
It relates to the amendment.
Yeah, as
Well,
long
it
as it's
sort- it sort of does.
relating to.
If I don't have a problem with that part of it, but if the price for getting an independent assessor works out to be $30,000, we pay an extra $25 for threaded pipe. We go with the threaded pipe.
I didn't ask for an independent assessor, I asked for photographic evidence of their wells. I'm not, yes, they do.
And is threaded pipe better?
Yes.
Is it a lot better?
Welded pipe's good if it's done. I don't want to, we're on open thing, I've put,
defeats the purpose because if we allow that, then the other thing gets thrown out altogether.
So it
So
sounds
does
like
the
it's a no.
mover accept the amendment?
No, because I think
okay, that's fine, you're not going to offend me, but
no.
I just know more than
Yeah.
people know here, but.
Okay, so, do we have a second for councillor McMullen's amendment?
No, I don't need one.
I knocked it.
Oh, well,
So
no,
if the mover of the original motion doesn't accept it, you then go back to the proposer of the amendment and then seek if there is a seconder to the amendment.
Well, that's what I'm
That's what
asking.
it-
Okay, is there a seconder for councillor McMullen's amendment? If they're not, it lapses.
okay, it's lapsed, I'm happy with that.
So can I get back to my question now?
Please go ahead.
If we were going to get an assessor out, like was to check the wells, with regardless of the photo thing, check the wells, that could run into a lot of money. Him standing there all day. Sorry, we get no.
That's all right.
Forget the weld
These
and
things
just
here will tell you if you've done it properly, mate. That's what,
Hey?
you look at it, you'll tell if it's done.
yeah. I get all that, but I'm getting away from doing the weld altogether and go back to the threaded pipe.
Well, if you want to do that, I'd support that too, don't get me wrong.
That's what I'm getting at. If we have to get someone, whether it's to do all that, it's costing us money. We better off just paying a little bit extra, and we're already paid for it, and going the threaded pipe.
The CEO has said there is
You'd
enough.
do both.
Enough to be able to do the threaded, so if you put in your motion.
That's what I want to do.
So does that drilling company
Just
do?
through the
Yeah,
chair,
they do
actually,
both.
I will
They've given us
qualify that.
options.
They do.
So we should have just done that to start with.
Yep, so through the chair, I will qualify that because I'm just looking at the string of information that was supplied to you. They've priced to weld the casing. If we prefer threaded, the contractor can do this, but there will be an extra cost in the order of 25 to 30K. So apologies, that's a little bit different to what I've said.
So therefore, how do we, if we all are in agreement, which we don't know yet, but if we are about doing the thread, how do we're going to have to alter that tender price, aren't we? And we don't have a specific price, or what wording can we use to just say
Additional. Number 3 is
Well, we could
additional.
lay it on the table to give the CEO a little bit more time. The other thing that we can do is it can be subject to final negotiations and so forth. We've done that in lots of tenders. So CEO, do you need a bit more time to find out whether we've got enough budget and stuff like that?
Yes, through the chair, you may have enough budget and you just may need to just strengthen the recommendation, so I'll just confirm that.
Is it time critical that it's completed today?
I'll find that out
We
too.
can find that out. So I move we lay this on the table till later in the meeting. And all those in favour? 8-0. Okay, Kel, what's next?
It is one of
14.3. Page 82. Is that correct?
Well, no, that
82.
can't be dealt with until another one.
I don't think this needs to be done today,
So we can't deal with that one because it's laid on the table till after another decision. So L2's the
L2.
Sorry, what's the next one, Kel? L2. Yeah, I just.
L2, Roma Neighbourhood Centre. Neil, did you get that information you were chasing?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
I did, but I'm no clearer, to be honest. So I've got a question. Once I find the email.
1249.
1249.
Three, or either businesses or community groups or whatever. 7 people.
So I'm just confused. Am I right to ask?
Yes, please go ahead.
So in the body of the report, it says 20 people attended, but the email that was sent says that were 9 people in attendance in addition to the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CEO, Local Area Director, the Local Development Officer. That's 5. 6 is a Dale Harker. Now, I'm not too sure who Dale is.
Community member.
But then why is it listed in terms of staff, though? Does anyone know who Dale Harker is?
And Anna's email.
Well, it's in Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CEO, LAD, LDO, and Dale Harker. Is Dale a council worker?
No,
I'm getting nodding.
I don't think so.
But just through the chair, is that relevant?
It's just I'm trying to understand the information that was provided. It's
How many
been.
community members and how
They're the
many?
people that are going on nominated to go on the.
I'm trying to understand because our director, thanks for the information, Anna and Edwina sent it. It's got Mayor, Deputy Mayor, CEO, LAD, LDO, and Dale Harker as like a grouping together, and then it goes on to say interested people on the committee. So I'm just trying to understand does Dale fit in as a staff member or something?
No, she fits in as a community member. She was a visitor on the night.
Okay.
Yep, if that makes it more clear.
Right.
Representing council, no.
Ah, righto.
Okay. And then so was there 20 people in
Yeah,
attendance?
it's easy 20.
Well,
Well,
my
they didn't
rough
take-
20, apologies, councillors.
Sorry.
Huh?
My rough 20.
But they didn't take
No,
it.
right,
They didn't
well-
take all their names.
Oh,
That
so
was just my rough.
No, but saying
So
there was
there's
list-
there's no attendance
list
list.
done,
Or minutes.
but just
This is the,
general discussions, and they call for nominations for the, and just correct me if I'm wrong, for the people that would put their hand up for the group to be on the,
so 8 people.
so they're the people that listed said they'd go on a board, like on a group. You had to have 7, I think.
Incorporated body.
Incorporated
Excuse me,
body.
Mayor Golden. Anna wanted to speak there.
Through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We didn't actually take an attendance list on the night, so that was me sitting in the corner just doing a rough count.
Yes, yeah.
And then one individual did arrive later, and to be honest, I can't recall if I counted before or after he arrived. So we do believe it was around
That's
that
reasonable.
9 or
15
10
people,
people.
It's a good number though, I think.
And was there, in the S170 I asked, were there any minutes or notes taken on the night to share with councillors?
Only what Anna wrote in her.
In her what?
Well, Anna was taking notes. I don't know what she did, but
No, I don't think there was. Was that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I took some notes for my
Own
own
benefit.
note keeping, but they're probably not 100% extensive, given the way the consultation was occurring.
Did they need to be taken, the minutes and that?
No, it's just
No.
to gauge interest, that's what
Yep,
it was.
that's all.
That's what the interest is in the report. Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Any opposition?
I know I have more questions if that's
Please
okay.
go ahead.
And so the reason I asked for notes or minutes, and I accept they didn't need to be taken, but I'm interested if someone can articulate as to what the purpose of the group will be. Under the incorporated entity, there's going to have to be a mission statement, a purpose. I mean, I'm still not clear as to what it looks like to invest ratepayer and community money into setting it up. But if someone can shed some light on that, that'd be really good.
So, I can, we basically, this has been to council, as you can see in the report, it's been there before. It was about talking, dealing with, obviously what a neighbourhood centre does, it deals with many things in the communities. I explained that, my own personal vision is that it will be a place where youth can go, dealing with the crime issues, run programs, as well as whatever the neighbourhood centre as an incorporated body decide to do, and just really focused around community benefit. And out of that, 8 people signed up on the night to be involved in the incorporated body. Any other questions, Councillor O'Neill?
And the mission will be what?
Well, obviously, this will be a series of meetings to start an incorporated body, and that was the brief outline that I go as I was authorised to lead the discussions. And as you can see in the report, where I brought it to council before, on page 18, some of the general issues that we're noticing in the community, and once we get advice on how to set the body up, then this motion would authorise extra meetings, get the feedback from the people that are going to be involved in the incorporated body, and it would go on from there.
So no brief was given to the individuals that have now signed up to be part of an interim group in forming a incorporated entity. No brief was given to them to give them enough information to say they wanted to be involved.
I explained the general history of what the neighbourhood centre did in the past, the benefits. In fact, there was 2 people there that actually had received benefits and now adults from the neighbourhood centre. I think the community members had enough idea also, as well as the overview that I gave. They also had enough overview from themselves, seeing how the neighbourhood centre performed in the past. Councillor McDonald.
if I can add to that, Mr Mayor, Christina Waldron, Ursula Williams, Pauline Scantlebury, and I think Helen was one too, but those 3 were definitely
Involved.
had been in prior. Helen Murphy was there, but she opted not to go on the committee, but I just can't remember whether she was involved with the centre when it was going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a question. And obviously there was questions from the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there was a big discussion, like a lot of the Ursulas and the Christine and Pauline in particular and Helen raised, their concerns about how it used to work with one group was in that office, and then if they had an issue, like someone was needed to attention under this one, but also needed attention from the other body, you know, that they could just go from one room to the other and check things out, and without having to go looking all over town to different offices, you know, it was all under the one roof when they went to deal with issues, yeah.
But that's not the suggestion to go back to that, is it? From what I just heard from the mayor, it's about having a centre where youth can go to.
But yeah, but I think you'll find once this group gets officially sworn in, I suppose, they'll be looking at all sorts of things. Yeah, that's to get it going. There's no two ways about that. But I think they're looking to expand it further.
And my last question is, the resolution that was put by yourself, Mayor, in the meeting in Newbon had yourself and Councillor Edwards on the committee. What's happened there?
Well, this way, I'm not putting that one forward now. Our last motion was
Just through the chair, you actually had some legal advice in relation to that.
yeah, we got some legal advice and it's in the report, and that's why I would not be standing, if I'm involved, you know, in it, or councillors are, I would be suggesting we just be as people that would come to the meetings.
Page 19.
Yeah. That'll be good.
Okay, so no more questions, I think you said. Councillor Hancock,
Just
please.
one more question. Mr Mayor, so if it worked so good in the past, and I'm not suggesting it didn't, I'm just wondering what happened? What happened that it didn't,
Well,
it all fell apart?
I don't know, but I can tell you what I was told that night. Under amalgamation, some of the former rural councils, you know, didn't think it was worthwhile doing it. That's, you know, having it over there, bring it over here and shove some of it in here.
So it was totally run by council?
Oh, yeah. Roma Town,
all the organisations
in the
under it
Roma
just
Town.
went,
It
like,
started
mixed
under Roma
over it.
Town.
It had a committee.
Had a
It wasn't,
committee over it.
it was a separate,
But it was,
Yeah, and
Baden chaired it at one point.
yeah.
Council took a dividend from the rental paid for the building.
Sorry?
Council took a dividend
Oh, okay,
The
yeah,
rental.
right, yeah.
paid for the building, which was
It was, apparently it was
significant in
very
the day.
profitable, well, according to those. I don't know who I was talking to, someone that
3 million.
was involved in it, yeah.
But by the time I got here in 2012, the numbers were starting to dwindle in the neighbourhood centre itself in terms of organisations. There was more staff down in the neighbourhood centre, and we all know the history of the building and the issues of the building, and that led council to applying for a grant from the state government and working with the two larger resource companies in the investment, which ended up being the community hub. And then over the preceding, 8 years, those organisations that transferred over here, they have started to, they've moved and they've done other, gone into other, buildings, and some have folded altogether. So that's the history. But I wasn't here when what Councillor McMullen's talking about.
No, I wasn't here, I just was mentioned there someone the other night.
Councillor Hancock, the feedback I've had from community members was the new council was not interested in being in this space, and because of that, it didn't continue. That's what I've had from community members back at that time after amalgamation. Okay, so we have a mover and a second. I'll speak to the motion. I believe that in the current environment, an incorporated body that we can, council can help facilitate will be a great driver. There is so much community support to get this neighbourhood centre up and running. Obviously run some great youth programs, as what did happen in the past. In fact, there was 2 people from the community meeting that actually had benefited from it when they were obviously children or teenagers. So when the road hits, the rubber hits the road, this is a great way to be more nimble and get on with delivering for the community. So I'm really looking forward to getting on top of through the incorporated body, working obviously in council and working with them to run programs to get kids off the street and reduce neighbourhood crime. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Taylor.
I won't be voting, I will be voting against this motion as I don't believe this is the answer. The youth that you are trying to help have one problem. They don't want to, or they're not allowed to go home. Maybe we should start there. The $16,000, the $20,000 you're going to spend on setting this up could go into helping, say, the PCYC with their youth programs, could go into paying the membership for these kids so they could go to the PCYC after school and feel safe, maybe even have afternoon tea and someone to help with homework or just to let them throw a ball around. Work with, as an example, the PCYC to support them and maybe even offer financial assistance if we have any money to spare. The $16,000, $20,000 is only the beginning with the neighbourhood centre. There is repairs and ongoing costs. And as I said, if we have any spare money, let's support an organisation that is already trying to help the youth that needs help. There is a problem, that I agree, but we are not the solution. This needs to be driven by professionals.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor
Yeah,
Bassett.
Mr Mayor, I do agree there is a problem. I endorse actually some of Councillor Taylor's points, but I'm hoping that the people that do go into this neighbourhood centre are the right people for that job and networking amongst themselves, like Councillor McMullen said earlier. I think these guys are in a position, location-wise, and also that they can pinpoint the problems because they're on the ground. They can offer all those services still, whether it's through funding and with other organisations that are already set up in town, or Queensland Health or whatever. But I think these people can access all that and they can still do all that homework, centres and all that, and get them off the street, because it is a big problem. And I can see the police, I can't see a problem with the police and PCYC coordinating with these guys anyway. I think everyone needs to work together for this problem, but I think it's great that you had 15 or 20 people there, because we've had other interaction with the local community on bigger things, or not bigger things, but more controversial, and never got this showing. So I think good signs are there.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I'm against the motion, not because I don't think that there's an opportunity for council to support organisations in town to assist with the issue around youth and youth crime that many people in the community speak to us about. I'd always thought and expressed this when we had the debate around the future in the neighbourhood centre, that the ideal location to have some kind of drop-in facility for the younger generation would be in fact up around the skate park. I still think that. I think having a place where they congregate now would be ideal, where they can exert some energy, and council's exploring the investment into that particular area of town with the things we're going out to consultation on in the next little while. So I've always thought that would be the ideal place. It came up yesterday at an event that a few of us at council attended, and some of the older members of our community expressed to me just what Councillor Taylor had just shared, and that is why aren't we backing the PCYC? When the PCYC approached council many years ago to set up their organisation in our community and to take on the lease of a very large council facility, it was about ensuring there was a place for the younger members of our community to go, to feel safe. Obviously, there's a police presence, but it's a diluted police presence at the PCYC. And I think it would be more beneficial for our community to get behind and invest more into an already established organisation and to working with them to ensure that we're getting the kids off the street, and we can do whatever we can to make this a safer place and to ensure that there isn't the cycle of crime that can happen when you've got younger members of our community that are, it's sometimes up to no good. So I'm not against supporting initiatives that work in with our community and making it a safer place. I just don't think that this is the answer in terms of the location. I applaud the community members that have expressed an interest. There is obviously a need, and as the Deputy Mayor shared earlier, there are some passionate people that have been involved in this space for a long time. My voting against this is not anything to do with their interest and their involvement. It just simply is I don't think this is the right place on two major highways. We've got an already existing asset that neighbours where we're sitting here today, and I think we should be backing the PCYC 100% to address the issues that we're facing in town.
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to add a few things. PCYC have been unsuccessful at this stage at getting some of these people to come to the facility. One of the moves already set in place to work with a group that will work with the neighbourhood centre is Headspace, and it's already, I think I've got the date right, Monday the 30th, Headspace are funding a barbecue in the old Jackson Street Park. There is no park there anymore, but at the grounds there, to try and attract, it's a lunch, I think it's 11 a.m. Anyway, it's a through the day barbecue to try and draw the children that might need a feed nut out of their backyards or wherever they might be, and to start working with them. The local crime and prevention officer's back on deck now, so she'll be working with all these groups as well. So, as I said, there's a lot of the children won't come to the PCYC, not because of who's there, I think just they don't want to come there, yeah. That's what we're hearing, yeah.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hancock.
Mr Mayor, I just want to say that I am not voting for this motion today because I'm actually concerned about exactly what Councillor McMullen's just raised. I need more information because my concern is we can invest this money into setting up a new organisation, invest this money into upgrading the Roma neighbourhood, invest this money, and we still might not be able to get the people there. So that's if that's what I'm hearing from Councillor McMullen, that's not happening in the PCYC. Why is this may not be any different? My concern is how do we get these children there? I actually love the idea that Headspace is actually going out to the people. They're actually going out to the park and letting that barbecue smell through the backyards. I think we should be investing this money. $20,000 is a lot of money. I think we should be investing it into maybe meeting the core needs of trying to work out engaging these kids. I just need more information about how this is actually going to get the kids there that we haven't been successful getting into any other building or facility. I just don't think it should be about the building. I've just got to have more information about how we're going to engage those kids.
Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Ladbroke.
Yeah, I think, the neighbourhood centre will be very good for young people. There's a lot of young ones that won't go to the PCYC. In the neighbourhood centre, there's 27 rooms. So, there's a lot of privacy there, and I think with the support of the people that are there, it'll be very good for the young ones. And I think it's a very good position because I think the amount of kids that you see around town, and if they know that the neighbourhood centre is filled with warm people and people that care, they will turn up there. Because the amount of young ones that are around the street at night might pop in, which would be nice really.
So will it be open at night time?
I believe there'd be people stay there.
So all of that would have to be up to the incorporated body and what they work out and so forth with programs and council and all of that. Okay, so does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd just like to say that for the last 2 years since I've been on the council, we've talked about the neighbourhood centre in so many different ways with so many different proposals, and we've been tossing around ideas. I see this as a seeding grant, and I'm very encouraged by the fact that there's a number of people in the community who have got credentials who have worked with children before, who have got passion, who have got ideas. I'd like to see something start from this, and I think if we sit back on our hands, it'll be another 2 years. The neighbourhood centre will be still there. We'll be still talking about what do we do with the kids. I think we've got to do something and then evaluate the success and either build on it, or it'll provide us with maybe a different direction. But I think we've got to try and at least give this the opportunity to come to fruition.
Okay, righto, then I'll sum up. To Councillor O'Neill's point, I'm just wondering how long you'll wait to see whether things will work. The PCYC, the feedback that I get, that these kids that are on the margins of society do not want to go to a police-run youth citizens club. Now, that's nothing against the people. In fact, the officer in charge is awesome, but you've got to break that mould where they don't want to go something that's, obviously they've had issues with police and so forth. To me, it's about getting them to the neighbourhood centre, and the neighbourhood centre is just also an instigator of running programs. So in the last term, we were talking about why wouldn't kids go to the PCYC, and they weren't going there. So definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And to me, I think we need to go in a different direction. To have an independent incorporated body that's driving this brings the passion to it, where council can be on the side supporting it. So, we've got people that have had cars broken into, break-and-enters. We've got all of these things happening that community is worried about. We need to do something, and this is the start of it. And if we don't get in and start making it happen, all we are is talk. And I think we need to be more than talk, so that's why I'm going to support this motion. And I believe, I can't wait for it to happen and get people in the room that not only care about the children, but also care about the community. So on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 5-3 if I can call for a division. Okay.
Thanks, mate.
Just
Thank
to-
you.
Just going to make a phone call to Rex. In relation to the board, I've just circulated an email. Yes, we can do. In the budget estimate. Council may wish to just.
But he had the wrong way.
To that would be much.
2 aeroplane ones to go.
It is tightly on.
What are we on to now, councillor Burkett?
Okay, we'll just adjourn for a minute.
Yeah.
So up to the,
Mungallala one?
yeah, the ball.
What's,
12.1 on page 56. Yeah, but there's a shot.
And so, you got to call it again.
12.1, tender 22037, drilling and construction, Mungallala bore award.
Mr Mayor, can we add point 3 into that and just say, as part of not negotiation,
Approval process.
part of the contract,
tender.
if we can council recommend, council not recommend, what's the word
Council.
I'm after?
approve,
Council approved to
the
use threaded casing.
but in saying that, we've got to adjust the pricing then.
Was that 20,000?
Why don't we,
Why
sorry,
don't
I
you
have
say
a
it's an
suggestion.
additional?
Maybe we could say something, Mabcio, just about approving the pricing and then giving the authority for the CEO or delegate to negotiate
The additional cost.
the additional costings for using threaded.
Casing.
Casing.
Would that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Authorise the CEO or delegate.
If final terms, they use the wording, if final terms are acceptable.
No, we just want to.
We just want
No,
to.
just
no,
wanna
give us the
negotiate.
option of both, so.
No, but we always have that in the contract. And that's the way the CEO, in case it's something,
Final
shocking. that-
negotiations regarding the use.
Of threaded casing.
It just,
I don't know about regard, because that's still thrown up there. We want to
Define
definitely say we're using it.
With the use of,
For the use of.
for the use of, yeah, for the use of. threaded.
Authorise the CEO or delegate to change the scope of works to include threaded casing.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
then next dot point, CEO to
Change,
negotiate.
oh, it is change, did they?
It is changing the scope of works.
Well, it's to
We
confirm.
better just
confirm
slow up
things.
here and do it systematically so it's captured. And Kelly can hear one person.
Okay.
Also, we should ask the CEO what the CEO would be carrying it out. What do you think, CEO? Wording-wise.
Through the chair, what we know is we have a approved budget that potentially is higher than our tender amount. So we can reflect that, authorise the CEO delegate to enter into final negotiations using or including the use of threaded casing up to the approved budget amount. And that's just, doesn't talk about figures, it talks about just negotiating
Approved
up to
budget.
the ceiling of what's actually available.
Obviously, CEO, you're
the
happy there's enough
project.
budget there.
That, I've confirmed that with the officer, yeah.
No, that's good. Second one, so we still need that second one, the third one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All good. I'll have to read that out for completeness.
Yeah, it's in open, but you want to read out the new bit? Because you've read out the rest, haven't you?
Okay, just to add on to point 3, authorise the CEO or delegate to enter in the final negotiations, including the use of threaded casing up to the approved budget amount.
Okay, is the seconder happy with that?
I am.
Righto, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just think, I know it's the 4th bore of Mungallala, and I've had the pleasure, I don't know about pleasure, but working on the other 3. So I think this is a great asset to finally have a really good quality bore for the town of Mungallala, and it'll give them security with water moving forward.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
What else we got?
Oh, we just got an email back.
Can you print that out, please, Kel? We'll just adjourn for a minute.
Oh, no, we should be moving into committee.
Where-
With respect to this.
I'll move again
I'll
to
move
close.
again. I'll second that.
Oh.
All those in favour? What are we doing first, Rex?
Skitch and bricks.
6, Rex Partnership. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move the council one right to Rex Airlines acknowledging their proposal dated the 11th of May 2022 to acknowledge receipt of written advice from Rex Airlines confirming that a decision on the proposal be deferred until the 30th of August 2022. 3, respectfully decline their offer to fully take over the running of the Roma Airport. And 4, explore options with Rex Airlines that will continue to benefit the Maranoa community.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. He's got his hand up high.
Yeah, just got me.
Pick me, pick me.
I got a bomb, Mr. Mayor, when you were away.
Anyone in opposition? Does anyone?
Sorry, Mayor, just on point 2, acknowledge receipt of written advice from Rex. Can we, decision on the
I think that's pretty
remaining
good.
elements of the proposal?
Because otherwise 2 and 3 contradict each other a little bit, so.
But don't forget, they've got something else going in there as, anyway, but if you stick to the decision, I don't know whether you need that.
No, I don't
Confirming
think
that
it adds
decision on the
any
remaining
value.
elements of the proposal will be deferred until the 30th of August.
I think you made it very clear in 3 for one part of it. Do you need to go over that?
Well, the only thing I'm thinking, Mr. Mayor, is that I think if you don't say that, you're, in number 2, you're saying you're deferring the decision to the 30th of August, but actually you've made some of a decision in number 3 already.
Dot point 3 should
So
be-
it actually contradicts each other if we don't.
Dot point
Mr.
3.
Mayor, I believe you need to have that in there because you've still got points 2 and 3 that are on the table, I'm hopeful, that still need to be confirmed by the 30th
That's
of
right.
August.
Yeah. But
And you
not the
got-
whole
So
proposal.
Mayor,
A
I'll
new
change it to, sorry Cal, to acknowledge receipt of written advice, comma. 1. Respectfully, and move 3 to where 1 is.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Or A, it'll be A, sorry, Cal, that'll be confusing now, but A. B. Confirm the decision on the remaining elements be deferred.
Yep.
Okay,
Be deferred
Until
Until
the
30th of
30th of
August,
August 2022.
2022.
okay, councillor Ladbrook, are you happy with that?
We haven't finished it.
Just get this right first. Just read that out for completeness. The council, 1, write to Rex Airlines acknowledging the proposal dated the 11th of May 2022. 2, acknowledge receipt of written advice. A, respectfully decline their offer to fully take over the running of the airport. And B, confirm the decision on the remaining elements be deferred until the 30th of August 2022. And 3, explore options with Rex Airlines that will continue to benefit the Maranoa community.
I'm happy with that, Mayor Goldner.
All right, and does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
Now, we doing, well, we already laid 14/3 to a later meeting, have we?
Till later in this meeting.
This meeting and then.
Well, I move we lay that on the table till the next meeting for decision. All those in favour? All those against? 7-1 if I'm called for division. Is there any other business?
What about page 43? Sorry, was it, sorry, it was,
Not 43.
45, 11.1,
No, we don't.
financial report.
No, we don't. Leave that.
I've actually resolved it, it's
Yeah.
just that
Yeah.
I've got some questions that I've got to respond
So we're
to.
finished?
No, we're losing it.
Taylor did that.
Beautiful, thank you, councillor Taylor.
You're welcome.
Can you close the meeting, Mr Mayor?
Yeah, I'll just close the meeting at 5:37. Thank you for your
So if
attention.
we delay